Hey guys! Tonight, the air is thick with warmth and drifting steam. You step into a chamber lit by trembling golden lamps, their light glimmering across wet marble walls. The scent of olive oil and smoke lingers, mixed with something faintly sweet, crushed herbs and perfumed resins. From beyond the mist, you hear quiet voices, echoing laughter, and the soft splash of water. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. You find yourself in an ancient Roman bathhouse where every droplet tells a story. Beneath the stone arches, time feels slow and indulgent, a place where emperors and slaves shared the same steam, if not the same comfort. The floor hums faintly beneath your feet, warmed by hidden fires below, while attendants glide through the haze with bronze jugs and linen towels. It's strange, isn't it? How civilization once revolved around something as simple as water and warmth. In tonight's journey, you'll wander through these marble sanctuaries, thermae, to uncover how the Romans turned bathing into an art form, a ritual of gossip, politics, perfume, and quiet dreams. You'll see the way sunlight pierced domed ceilings, how steam carried whispers through the halls, and how luxury and decay lived side by side. By the end, perhaps you'll feel what they once felt, that gentle surrender to calm, the sensation of being clean, not just in body, but in spirit. Now take a breath, let the heat settle on your skin, and follow the mist deeper inside. The story begins where stone meets water, and history exhales. You move through late afternoon Rome where the air tastes of dust and figs, and the sun turns brick red against tiled roofs. Ahead, the bath complex rises like a patient beast, arches, colonnades, and a line of sandals scraping stone. A doorkeeper jingles bronze tokens, collecting the small fee most citizens could afford. Public baths mattered because they democratized comfort and hygiene, making daily restoration normal. Think of it as a city-wide spa membership, only cheaper, and with better gossip, we'll drift closer. The vestibule smells of wet limestone and rosemary smoke. Lanterns swing gently, and somewhere a vendor murmurs about dates dipped in honey. Attendants sort wooden tesserae, the little tokens proving entry, while scribes post notices about hours and gender rotations. Regulated schedules mattered, keeping order in a space where everyone, from senator to baker, might collide. It's like posting gym class times so gladiators don't interrupt yoga. You hand your token over, already feeling heat breathing from within. Voices echo like pigeons under the high barrel vault. Cool currents slip around your calves, but from deeper corridors comes the exhale of the hippocaust. Hidden furnaces, warming stone from below. The Roman trick of circulating hot air beneath floors made winter irrelevant and routine pleasure reliable. That predictability created habits and communities around bathing. Imagine central heating so dependable, even emperors bet their reputations on punctual steam. You hover at the threshold, comfort promised in measured breaths of warmth. A mosaic underfoot shows dolphins herding swimmers towards stylized waves. Decorative art wasn't just pretty, it mapped behavior and magnified civic pride. Images turned the act of washing into something ceremonial, reminding bathers that Rome claimed mastery over water. It's branding, really. The ancient equivalent of a luxury logo worked into the tile. You step carefully, toe finding the smooth tesserae, and feel the story tug you forward, the dolphins nudging you toward heat and hush. A thin, metallic ring carries through the vestibule, a strigil tapping a basin, an attendant signaling the next group to move. Little auditory cues orchestrated traffic so hundreds could cycle without chaos. That orchestration mattered for a city that lived on schedules, markets, forums, tribunals, and now steam. Think of it like a subway chime, except the train is relaxation. You follow the sound, your breath sinking to its rhythm, each step dissolving the street from your bones. Lamps paint the walls in honeyed rectangles. Their flame, fed by olive oil, throws soft halos that make even chipped plaster look noble. Lighting was practical, safety against slips. But it also curated calm, letting minds soften along with muscles. A reliable glow meant evenings could stretch, social ties could tighten, and whispers could ride the steam. Consider it early mood lighting with a side of public policy. Your eyes adjust, pupils dilating to welcome the gentle gold. Near a marble counter, a boy offers small flasks of scented oil, myrtle, rose, and a sharp, clean cypress. Romans bathed with oils more than soap, scraping dirt away later with strigils. Oils mattered because they moisturized skin in a climate of dust and sun, and because smell signals memory. Scent tied bath time to identity and class without a word spoken. It's like choosing your shampoo for personality points. You accept a drop, the fragrance slipping into your breath. The floor warms underfoot. The hypercaust hums like a sleepy cat. Beneath you, slave stokers feed braziers with pine and oak, managing heat by eye and instinct. Their labor mattered because comfort depended on invisible precision. Too hot, scalded; too cool, disappointed. Infrastructure is only as humane as the hands tending it. Think of baristas calibrating espresso shots, except here the creamer is steam. You pause, honoring the unseen hands, then drift toward the changing room's low murmur. A steward nods, gesturing to a niche where sandals can rest. Footgear wasn't just fashion, it protected against fungus and errant embers sneaking through cracked tile. Etiquette manuals, spoken, not written, governed everything. Where to place shoes, how to step, when to speak. Those little rules mattered because shared rituals kept crowds gentle. It's the unspoken escalator code of the ancient world. You tuck your sandals away, feeling the cool of stone on heel, the heat pulsing ahead. Somewhere, water slaps stone in a rhythmic punctuation. Cisterns refilling from aqueducts threading hills beyond the city. Gravity's long leash made this daily abundance possible. Aqueducts mattered because they turned luxury into habit. Without them, baths would be a festival, not a routine. Imagine a city whose plumbing is a love letter to pleasure. You listen to that letter being written, every splash a sentence, every drip a comma, guiding your breath towards slower paragraphs of rest. A whisper floats past, senators arguing quietly about grain, two artisans haggling over a statue's nose, a child excited about the cold plunge. The bath was Rome's open office, politics with towels. Public conversation mattered because it knit strangers into a city that felt intimate despite its scale. It's hard to riot with someone you've laughed beside in steam. You smile at the thought, tuck it away like a smooth pebble, and step nearer to the apoditarium. The vestibule narrows, heat concentrating, light thickening into a gentle blur. Your shoulders loosen without permission, as if the arches themselves made a pact with your muscles. The promise here is simple. You will set down the day and pick up only what's light. That promise mattered because even conquerors needed somewhere to be briefly small. Think of it as empires exhale. We'll return to the politics later. For now, you trail the lamplight into the changing room's hush. The changing room greets you with cedar sweetness and damp fabric. Cubbyholes line the walls like tidy beehives, each waiting to cradle a tunic, belt, or ring. Boys called capsarii watch your belongings, a reminder that even tranquility needs security. Theft happened. Vigilance mattered. Systems of trust kept crowds at ease, turning strangers into temporary neighbors. Think of coat check with better acoustics. You slide your bundle into a niche, feeling lighter, the room's warmth smoothing your edges. Linen brushes your skin as an attendant offers a towel, its fibers slightly rough, just enough to wake sensation without breaking calm. Textiles mattered, woven flax cooled quickly, useful when bodies moved between rooms of different temperatures. Practical comfort teaches a city to love ritual. It's the ancient version of performance athleisure, function disguised as softness. You drape the linen over your shoulder, the weight a promise of being cared for and cleaned, a small cloak of permission. A bronze mirror catches your eye, the surface dim, more suggestion than reflection. Romans used polished metal rather than clear glass, letting faces turn impressionistic under steam. Imperfect mirrors mattered because they encouraged mercy toward oneself. Blur is a kindness. It's like a beauty filter gifted by metallurgy. You glance, recognize enough to belong, and then let the rest dissolve. The mirror becomes a pond, and your expression ripples into something unhurried as you move toward the palaestra. The palaestra opens like a quiet courtyard, kissed by warm air. Sand crunches underfoot, and the smell shifts to salt, sweat, and crushed pine needles. Here you stretch, roll shoulders, and slow box the day away. Exercise mattered because heat works better on blood already moving. Romans knew sequence is medicine. Think of it as preheating the oven before bread. You lift your arms, feel the air glide along your ribs, and the city's noise recedes to a memory. Nearby, two men spar gently with leather-wrapped fists, more dance than duel. Padded practice mattered. It kept injuries low and conversation high. You can't trade stories with a broken tooth. Controlled exertion prepared minds to receive comfort, turning bath time into a full-body reset. It's Pilates with bragging rights. You mirror their rhythm for a moment, legs soft, breath steady, then let it go. The sand gives beneath your feet like a friendly animal learning your step. An attendant offers oil in a shallow dish, its surface reflecting a wobbly lamp. You smooth it across your arms. It slides warm, trapping heat near the skin. Oil mattered because it softened dirt and made the later scraping gentle, like coaxing a stubborn thought out rather than forcing it. Also, everyone gleamed gloriously, which never hurt civic morale. It's moisturizer meets conversation starter. You flex your fingers, feeling the slip change every gesture into something theatrical and slow. A man whistles while drawing a strigil along his forearm, the curved bronze singing faintly as it collects oil, dust, and the day's worries. The tool mattered because it made cleanliness tactile. You could see relief curl off in ribbons. Ritual becomes real when it leaves residue. Think of emptying your email inbox and actually seeing the trash icon fill. You try a gentle pass on your wrist, the scrape oddly satisfying, then pause, letting the moment settle like silt. Along the edge, a teacher coaches boys through measured stretches, counting in a calm cadence that matches your breathing. Instruction mattered because the baths doubled as social classrooms. Etiquette, posture, politics of patience. A city that teaches how to move also teaches how to belong. It's PE class without the humiliation of dodgeball. You listen to the count, hear your lungs echo the numbers, and feel the arithmetic of relaxation adding up quietly inside your chest. You notice hooks high on the wall, each holding a small charm or ribbon. People marked their niches with tokens, a bone carving, a dyed thread, tiny signatures of presents. Identification mattered before lockers and keys. It kept garments with owners and arguments off the floor. It's the original "This is my towel" label. You touch a simple knot of red string, imagine the hands that tied it, and feel how modest rituals make large spaces intimate. A faint breeze crosses the palestra, slipping from an open oculus and turning the lamp's flames thoughtful. Ventilation mattered in a room packed with breath and heat. Architects scripted airflow like music, keeping fatigue at bay. Good air is the quiet hero of comfort. Consider it the spa's stage manager, never applauded but always crucial. You lift your chin into the draft, grateful for its cool hand, and sense the next movement calling, the tepid embrace ahead. A steward claps once, not loud, just enough to pluck attention. Groups cycle inward, first the warm room, then hot, then cold. Sequence mattered because contrast stirs the nervous system into balance. The Romans understood that physiology can be persuaded. It's the original interval training, only with steam instead of sprints. We'll return to that logic soon. For now, you gather your towel, let oil glow on your skin, and step with everyone else toward the tepidarium's doorway. At the threshold, the floor grows warmer and the air fattens, richer with humidity and faint lavender. The room ahead hums like a hive, but softer, polite. Transition mattered because it taught your body to yield gradually, not jolt. The baths were lessons in gentle change, room by room, breath by breath. Think of dimmers instead of switches. You exhale, set your pace to the slow beat of dripping stone, and slip forward, ready for the first true wave of warmth. We'll continue there. The air thickens, warm enough to open pores yet soft enough to breathe easily. Marble benches line the walls, slick with a fine dew that reflects amber light from low oil lamps. The scent of lavender and bay leaf lingers, riding faint traces of smoke from the furnace below. This gentle middle chamber mattered because it bridged the outside world and the deeper heat beyond. The Romans believed comfort was best earned gradually, a prelude before surrender. You take a seat, and the stone greets you like an old friend. Water trickles from a small bronze spout, shaped like a dolphin, each droplet ringing out with metronomic precision. These sounds calmed the mind, training attention on rhythm rather than worry. The baths worked as much on psychology as on skin. It's like the first sip of coffee that tells your body you're safe to relax. You lean back, closing your eyes, and the world narrows to sound, breath, and warmth, tracing your collarbone. A young servant moves quietly between benches, carrying a basin of perfumed oil. The faint shimmer of myrrh flickers like a galaxy in the bowl. Romans prized myrrh not only for its fragrance but for its symbolic purity, something between medicine and perfume. Scent bridged the sacred and the mundane, reminding bathers that cleanliness could border on holiness. You breathe it in and imagine incense winding up temple columns, linking hygiene with humility. Across the room, laughter rises, light echoing, unguarded. The tepidarium was the social heart, a place where rank thinned like mist. Here, a merchant might share news with a senator, a poet with a baker. Such mingling mattered because it softened the spine of hierarchy, at least for an hour. Steam equalizes status. Silk and sweat look much the same in golden haze. You smile, wondering how many secrets dissolved into the vapor above these stones. The lamps flicker, their flames bowing to the movement of warm air. Architects designed the domed ceilings to trap heat and bounce sound in gentle circles, creating an atmosphere of perpetual murmur. This acoustic design mattered because it made privacy possible even in public. Voices blurred, confessions muffled, intentions lost in echo. It's the Roman version of cafe noise, soothing the mind with other people's comfort. You listen, not to words, but to warmth speaking through architecture. A man nearby dips a sponge into tepid water and dabs his shoulders, steam rising like faint ghosts. Bathing was incremental. Each room trained the body for contrast. Tepid, then hot, then cold, a choreography of sensation. Balance mattered more than temperature. To the Romans, health was harmony, not extremes. It's something modern gyms could learn. Comfort, too, can be conditioning. You follow his example, trailing the sponge along your arm, feeling warmth slide deeper under your skin. The light refracts through drifting vapor, scattering into soft halos. Everything becomes slightly unreal, people moving slower, gestures exaggerated by shimmer. This visual distortion mattered because it transformed daily routine into theater. In the baths, everyone was both actor and audience. Their own reflection blurred in steam. It's like living inside a watercolor painting, edges smudged on purpose. You tilt your head, half expecting applause from the marble itself. You notice the mosaic under your feet, sea creatures swirling in a playful chase. Dolphins, eels, and shells weave through geometric borders, painted in colored stone. Decoration was never mere ornament, it told stories about abundance and the generosity of nature. Romans loved to turn the floor into mythology, each step a reminder that pleasure had cosmic approval. You trace one dolphin with your toe, feeling myth meet muscle, art made intimate. A faint crackle echoes below, the hippocaust breathing again. Hidden ducts ferry fire's warmth through the hollow floors. This engineering mattered because it symbolized mastery over the elements, turning something primal into something civic. Fire was now domesticated, steam disciplined. Its heating as empire's metaphor, power distributed evenly, invisibly. You rest your palm against the stone and feel Rome's heart beating softly underneath. Somewhere beyond the doorway, deeper heat calls. The caldarium waits. Yet you linger, savoring this midpoint. The tepidarium taught patience, to let pleasure unfold rather than chase it. Maybe that's what civilization truly means. Learning to warm up before wanting more. You close your eyes again, listening to the trickle, knowing you'll follow it soon into the furnace's embrace. For now, you simply exist, halfway between cold marble and molten calm. The laughter fades, replaced by a quieter hum. Even conversation cools into sighs. The bath's rhythm is contagious, every exhale a cue for the next. Time stretches thin, elastic, until minutes blur into mist. The tepidarium wasn't built to cleanse, it was built to soften resistance, to life, to others, to stillness. You feel it working, loosening something beneath your ribs. The next chamber will take what remains. When you finally stand, droplets roll down your forearm like quicksilver. The doorway ahead glows brighter, lit from the fire beneath the caldarium's floor. Steam spills out, curling around your ankles, beckoning. You take one slow step forward, each breath deeper than the last. The warmth sharpens, the scent thickens. The Romans called this threshold limen, where change begins. You cross it, ready to meet the heat that rules all memory. The heat embraces you like velvet made of air. Every surface glistens wiki, and your first breath feels almost edible, dense, honeyed, filled with mineral taste. The caldarium was the bath's heart, a furnace of health and conversation. Beneath your feet, roaring fires heat the hollow tiles, their breath rising through vents. This mattered because the Romans understood comfort as infrastructure, pleasure engineered. Its central heating turned into a civic miracle. You exhale, watching your own breath join the fog. The room itself feels alive. Its domed ceiling captures the light of bronze lamps and scatters it in molten reflections. Condensation drips in slow rhythm, ticking against marble like patient rain. Engineers line these domes with hollow bricks to prevent cracks from heat. Innovation disguised as beauty. Its efficiency wrapped in elegance, something any modern architect would envy. You lean back against the curved wall and warmth presses through you like memory returning home. At the center lies the hot pool, its surface trembling under the weight of invisible fire. Steam curls around your face, gluing stray thoughts to the edges of calm. For the Romans, the caldarium wasn't just hygiene, it was therapy, a space to purge and renew. Sweating was considered moral as much as physical. An honest body meant an honest spirit. It's detox before marketing claimed the word. You slide a hand through the water. It's almost too hot, but oddly forgiving. Someone near you murmurs a prayer to Fortuna before submerging. Many Romans blended ritual with routine. Superstition was comfort's twin. They believed heat opened the soul as it opened pores, making it easier for blessings to enter. This mattered because it fused religion with daily life, keeping the divine domesticated. You can almost feel that, a quiet reverence, half prayer, half sigh. Steam blurs the lines between faith and physics. The scent of pine resin and wine-soaked herbs drifts through the room, ingredients burned in small sensors for air and aura. Romans liked their steam aromatic, believing fragrance cleansed unseen corners of the mind. Smell was memory's scribe, writing calm into the body. It's ancient aromatherapy without the marketing gloss. You inhale deeply, and for a moment the centuries fold inwards. You're just another heartbeat in Rome's breathing heat. On the wall, a marble relief shows a nymph wringing her hair into a basin. The curve of her arm gleams under lamplight, droplets carved to seem alive. Such art wasn't idle decoration. It was moral instruction disguised as beauty. Purity through water, grace through surrender. In a city of ambition, the baths reminded everyone that softness, too, was power. You watch the stone nymph forever rinsing eternity, and something inside you mirrors her gesture, washing thought itself. Near the furnace vents, attendants pour water onto hot tiles, raising sudden clouds that hiss like applause. This was both performance and maintenance. Steam management mattered for comfort and spectacle alike. The sudden bloom of mist delighted guests and balanced humidity. It's the Roman version of turning up the volume at just the right drop. The room sighs collectively as the fog thickens, erasing edges, leaving only silhouettes of slow, content movement. The heat works deeper now. You feel it behind your eyes, in the hollow of your throat, at the base of your spine. Muscles loosen without consent. and your mind begins to melt around its own edges. This physiological surrender mattered because Romans saw baths as controlled vulnerability, a rehearsal for trust. It's the opposite of armor. Heat replaces defense with honesty. You let go a little more, sweat mapping invisible roads down your temples. A man with a strigil moves nearby, his motions deliberate, scraping away sweat and oil in languid arcs. The curved metal glints with ritual precision. Removing dirt became symbolic, shedding yesterday's fatigue. The phrase renewed in spirit likely began with such gestures, its exfoliation as existential philosophy. You watch the blade glide, hear the faint ring of bronze, and imagine centuries of repetition smoothing humanity's roughness. The marble under you grows slick, heat clings even to thought. Conversations dissolve into humming, voices elongated by air so dense it hums back. The caldarium teaches silence through saturation. Too hot to speak, too content to need to. This mattered because in surrender, community found its quietest bond. It's a collective meditation disguised as leisure. You close your eyes. The sound of dripping water becomes a metronome for peace. When you finally rise, the air feels lighter, though your body glows like polished stone. Exiting the caldarium is an act of rebirth. Every cell believes it survived something noble. The doorway ahead leaks cooler mist, promising relief. You take one long look back at the steam, the statues, the softened world, then step forward into gentler air. The Romans built eternity out of temperature. You've just felt why. The doorway exhales a thin mist of coolness, and as you step through, the temperature shifts like a mood-changing rooms. Light sharpens, revealing marble walls veined with blue and white. The water in the great pool lies still, its surface like polished glass. This final plunge mattered, not as punishment, but as punctuation. After the fever of the caldarium, Romans believed shock sealed the benefits of heat. You hover at the edge, toes tingling with hesitation and anticipation alike. The first step steals your breath. The second teaches it back. Cold slides up your legs, clutching nerves and forcing presence. The frigidarium was both physiological and philosophical, a lesson that pleasure needs contrast to stay alive. Cooling the blood after steam reduced inflammation and revived alertness. Though they would have just called it balance, it's the ancient version of cryotherapy without influences. You sink to your shoulders, and the silence becomes a sound of its own, crisp and clean. A skylight above pours daylight into the chamber, breaking on the water in shifting mosaics of silver. Romans adored skylights, calling them oculi, eyes through which the gods could watch in gentleness. The interplay of light and water mattered because it blended architecture with divinity, geometry as devotion. Each glimmer felt like approval from Jupiter himself. You tilt your head back, watching reflections crawl across the dome, small suns skating on the ceiling of calm. Around you, others emerge from the pool with soft gasps, dripping like sculptures newly carved. The attendants rush forward with towels, their movements efficient but tender. Temperature regulation was practically medical, supervised by trained servants who understood the body's fragile thresholds. Care was codified here, making self-preservation a civic duty. Its spa service meets public health policy. You accept the towel, pressing it to your face, feeling the cool surrender into warmth once more. Along one wall, a small fountain gurgles from a lion's mouth, spilling water into an alabaster basin. The constant murmur served both hygiene and harmony. its rhythm grounding the mind after sensory extremes. Romans valued acoustics as much as aesthetics. Every sound here had purpose. Even the splash of water was scripted serenity. You rest your palm under the falling stream, the temperature biting just enough to make your pulse remember itself. A faint scent of mint and salt lingers in the air, carried by the cool draft. Many frigidaria were perfumed subtly, not for vanity but vitality, to remind bathers of the open air, the sea, the wider world waiting outside. This mattered because transition needed context. Leaving warmth too suddenly could feel like exile. The Romans softened reality with fragrance. You breathe in, and the mint slices through fatigue, bright and clean as morning. The marble benches shimmer with condensation, their surfaces smooth from centuries of skin. Here, people sat wrapped in linen, letting blood and breath stabilize. Rest wasn't laziness, it was maintenance. Romans considered idleness at the right time of virtue, otium, noble leisure. It's the predecessor of mindfulness, just wetter. You sit beside a column, tracing its chill with your fingertips, and realize the architecture itself feels alive, pulsing with echoes of 1,000 sighs. Beyond the pool, statues stand in quiet witness. Neptune with his trident, Venus wringing her hair, Hercules leaning on his club, still steaming from eternal labor. Art framed recovery as divine alignment. Gods modeled the acts humans repeated. To imitate them was to approach balance. Its theology carved in marble, gym motivation with better sculpting. You nod to Hercules in shared exhaustion, both of you momentarily done with effort. Somewhere nearby, a young man dives with a splash that fractures the serenity. The noise ripples through the hall, laughter following like light skipping water. Romans tolerated mischief here. Joy was proof of vitality. Noise, when earned, was sacred. The frigidarium wasn't silence enforced, but silence released. You smile, remembering that discipline makes room for delight, and the water closes over another ripple of humanity. When you rise, droplets cascade down your arms in rivulets of light. The contrast between heat and cold leaves your skin humming, alive, electric, yet utterly calm beneath. This alternating ritual mattered because it symbolized mastery over duality, hot and cold, order and chaos, pleasure and pain. Rome itself was built on such paradoxes. You wrap yourself in linen, marveling at how the body forgets and forgives so quickly. A steward offers a small cup of spiced wine, malsum, honeyed and warm. Drinking after bathing completed the cycle, body cleansed, spirit loosened, senses rewarded. This mattered because ritual without reward risks becoming religion without joy. The taste is sharp, sweet, faintly medicinal. It coats your throat like amber and reminds you that everything pleasurable can also heal. You take another sip, savoring the warmth returning softly to your chest. Outside the doorway, light flickers. Dusk already creeping along the corridors, your skin tingles, alert yet serene, carrying the ghost of steam and marble. The day has been washed from you, replaced by something slower, simpler. The baths have done their work. You glance back once more at the pool's quiet mirror, now scattered with gold from dying sunlight. Rome taught you that cleanliness was not escape from the world, but re-entry with gentler eyes. You emerge into a hall scented with olive oil and fig leaves, where the air is cooler and laughter more human again. Light filters through colored glass, painting the marble floor with patches of rose and jade. Attendants move gracefully among reclining guests, their hands full of towels, combs, and oil flasks. This space, part dressing room, part lounge, mattered because recovery completed the ritual. Clean wasn't enough. One had to reassemble oneself gently. An attendant spreads a linen cloth on a couch, its surface padded with woven straw. You lie down, feeling the grain through the fabric, a pleasant texture that keeps you tethered to the body after all that drifting heat. Massages begin not as luxury, but necessity. The muscles need persuasion to remember their duties. Roman masseurs were prized artisans, blending medicine with art. It's ancient physiotherapy, but with better lighting. Fingers knead your shoulders, pressing sighs loose from their hiding places. Nearby, two senators recline side by side, their conversation floating lazily above the sound of skin being oiled. Politics never fully leaves Rome, not even in repose. Deals were drafted here between sighs, alliances sealed over towels. The baths were democracy by proximity, and gossip the empire's bloodstream. It mattered because every social structure thrives on informal warmth. You imagine decisions about roads and wars emerging from beneath layers of perfumed steam. The masseur switches to the lower arms, using oil scented with saffron and crushed almonds. The aroma blooms softly, hinting at distant gardens and wealth compressed into droplets. Imported spices like saffron came from Spain and the East. Luxury poured over common bodies. This mattered because it turned empire into texture, trade into touch, globalization, ancient addition. You inhale the golden sweetness, your skin gleaming like freshly minted coin under the fading light. Laughter swells again as a group of soldiers recounts their campaigns, exaggerating the scale of every river crossed and every foe bested. Bathhouses were stages for performance, verbal theatre without admission fees. Boasting mattered less as deception and more as art. Rome admired the eloquence of exaggeration. It's storytelling with steam effects. You listen from your couch, half smiling, realizing even empires unwind by talking themselves taller. A young woman nearby plats her hair, twisting it into a knot, slick with oil. Her fingers move with ritual grace, winding order back into what the baths unraveled. Grooming mattered not as vanity but closure. Proof that the world could be rebuilt strand by strand. It's the small poetry of maintenance. You watch her reflection in a bronze mirror, the soft candlelight turning her hair into flowing copper. On the wall, a fresco shows servants carrying amphorae, pouring endless water that never quite reaches the floor. The imagery reminds guests of abundance and continuity. Water, even when painted, promised renewal. Romans loved repetition as reassurance. The same motif appeared in baths across the empire. It's branding again, but this time for serenity. Your eyes trace the curve of a painted jug until it blurs into dream. An attendant sets down a small tray of figs, cheese, and bread. The simplest meal, yet offered with reverence. Eating after bathing reintroduced the senses to the ordinary world. Texture, taste, and touch realigned like stars returning to familiar constellations. This mattered because rest isn't retreat. It's rehearsal for living. You tear a piece of bread, the crust crisp, the center soft as memory, and feel grounded again in the simplest grace of nourishment. Conversation drifts to music. A boy enters with a lyre, plucking a slow, meandering tune that sways through the hall like scented smoke. Music in bathhouses wasn't rare. It bridged silence and chatter, letting minds land softly. The melody is fragile, repeating just enough to be forgotten gracefully. It's lo-fi antiquity, gentle imperfection as atmosphere. You close your eyes, the strings echoing through your ribs, warmth humming beneath the cooling skin. Outside, the evening air begins to slide through open arches, brushing the edges of curtains. The temperature drop is subtle but deliberate. Architects designed airflow to signal conclusion. The body understands cues before the mind does. It's choreography written in wind. You stretch slightly, feeling the linen shift beneath you, the oil absorbing, the world cooling back into reality. As the last notes of the lyre fade, attendants dim the lamps, their flames shrinking to amber pearls. The room glows with afterlight, that soft hour when Rome exhales and the baths dream of tomorrow. Around you, quiet conversation turns to murmurs, then to silence. Everything slows, like a tide turning inward. You take one last breath of fig, oil and stone, and let it anchor you. The city waits outside, but not yet. Tonight, you belong to steam and rest. Beneath the marble, another Rome breathes, darker, hotter, alive with firelight. You wouldn't see it unless you knelt beside a furnace hatch, peering into the glow. Down here, the air tastes of smoke and sweat, the walls blackened with soot. This is the realm of the fornicatores, the unseen stokers who fed the hypocauste's hunger. Their work mattered because luxury has a heartbeat, and it's almost always invisible. You can hear it now, the steady roar beneath the city's sighs. Each furnace burned day and night, devouring wood hauled from distant hills. Pine for quick heat, oak for endurance, and olive wood for a sweeter smoke that wouldn't choke the guests above. The stokers learned to read flame-like language, the blue hiss of perfection, the orange gasp of exhaustion. Fire management was art and discipline, their version of calculus. Think of it as HVAC engineering by instinct, every ember a variable. You feel their rhythm, slow, relentless, necessary. Their skin gleamed with oil and soot, hands blistered, lungs darkened by years of devotion to comfort they'd never taste. Yet pride lived here too, quiet and stubborn. The stokers joked that they kept the emperor's bath warm while he ruled the world. That irony mattered because it revealed Rome's strange equality. Everyone served the system, only at different temperatures. You picture one man leaning on his shovel, smiling through the smoke, unbothered by the irony he fuels. Wood was currency here. Each cartload accounted, each spark rationed. Fuel shortages meant tepid baths, and tepid baths meant public complaint, something no patron desired. The fornicatores knew the pulse of politics through the speed of their deliveries. When senators demanded hotter water, they burned their nights shorter. Fire as governance, heat as reputation. You imagine them whispering, "We keep Rome patient." And in a way they did. Every empire needs its thermostats. Sometimes scraps of bread or figs fell through the grates, gifts from grateful attendants above. Those small tokens mattered more than gold, tiny acknowledgements from the glittering world above the ash. Connection flowed downward in crumbs. You think of modern service jobs, where appreciation often arrives as tips instead of fairness. Different empire, same gratitude. The stoker catches a fig mid-air, laughs, and tosses it into his mouth like a victory. The tunnels hummed with heat. Rats, half tame, ran along brick ledges, drawn to crumbs and warmth. Cats wandered too, half guardians, half gossipers, their eyes catching the fire like coins. The fornicatores fed them occasionally, believing cats brought luck, or at least fewer screams at night. Superstition mattered because hope thrives best in dark places. You picture a man scratching a cat's head between shovelfuls of firewood, both sharing the same glow. Every morning, smoke rose through narrow vents, drifting into Rome's skyline like incense. Above, the city might curse the haze. Below, it meant the day had begun. That exchange mattered. Suffering turned into steam, discomfort into someone else's sigh of relief. It's a strange alchemy, converting toil into tranquility. You exhale, realizing how often comfort hides its creators. History rarely thanks the hands beneath the heat. Occasionally, inspectors descended with tablets to check the furnaces, noses wrinkled against the stench. They wrote notes about efficiency and fuel cost, rarely looking the stokers in the eye. Bureaucracy existed even in hell, yet the stokers understood something the officials didn't. The fire would always outlast the paperwork. It's management versus flame, a timeless rivalry. The men below just smiled, because no empire survives a cold bath. When the night shift came, the tunnels glowed dimmer, embers banked like sleeping hearts. Some men dozed beside the vents, soot softening their outlines. Others hummed songs from forgotten provinces, their voices muffled by stone. These lullabies mattered, small rebellions against fatigue. A fire without music burns lonelier. You can almost hear it, those half words melting into rhythm, flickering with the flames, slow applause. Occasionally, hot air burst upward, rattling tiles and startling bathers above. The Romans pretended not to notice, but everyone knew the furnaces sneezed when overfed. The stokers laughed at the panic they caused, a bit of secret revenge for the blindness of their masters. Humor mattered down here. It kept despair from settling. Even jokes glowed in orange light. You chuckle softly, thinking the same men who fed the heat also spiced it with mischief. At dawn, the stokers emerged, faces masked in soot, eyes pale with exhaustion and pride. The bathhouse above would open soon, polished and perfumed, no trace of the inferno that powered it. That invisibility was their signature. Every comfort needs its ghost, every luxury its laborer. You imagine them stepping into the street, smoke still curling from their hair, anonymous saints of warmth. They vanish into the crowd before history can ask their names. The tunnels quiet, embers dimming, but you still hear their echo, the pulse beneath perfection. The Romans built monuments for generals, but none for the men who kept water warm. Maybe that's the lesson. Real civilization hums unseen. You leave the furnaces behind, feeling the faint vibration underfoot, the heartbeat of empire still whispering upward. The baths may shine above, but the story always starts in fire. Above the heat, another choreography unfolds, dozens of attendants moving with clockwork grace through corridors of steam and chatter. Linen drapes over arms, bronze strigils hang from belts, sandals slap softly against stone. These attendants, mostly freedmen or slaves, were the invisible orchestra of comfort. Their role mattered because the Roman bath was less an act than a performance, and someone had to cue every scene. You watch them glide, each step precise, each gesture learned by repetition. The capsarii guarded clothes in the apoditerium, shouting warnings when pickpockets hovered too close. Theft here was so common it inspired curses carved in marble. May your hands burn in the furnace if you steal a towel. Such inscriptions mattered because they blended law with superstition, the state outsourcing justice to fear. It's the ancient version of smile, you're on camera. only with more poetic threats. You grin, picturing a thief nervously glancing at the ceiling for divine lightning. Then there were the unctors, the oilmen, masters of scent and touch. They could tell a person's mood by how their muscles resisted oil. Their art mattered because intimacy, done right, feels like listening through hands. These men were therapists before psychology existed. Some even became celebrities, favored by senators or gladiators alike. It's the Roman version of influencers, their fame oiled by skill and gossip. You watch one swirl oil on his palm, creating sunlight in liquid form. Their tools gleamed: bronze scrapers, combs, pumice stones, little jars of perfumes from Arabia and Syria. A good unctor knew how to mix scents to flatter his client's status. Musk for soldiers, rose for poets, cedar for politicians who wished to smell trustworthy. Fragrance was personality chemistry long before cologne counters. It mattered because smell lingers longer than words. You inhale faintly, and the air feels eloquent. Another attendant, a young boy, moves between bathers with folded towels, murmuring polite Latin phrases rehearsed until meaning wore off. He will grow up knowing 100 accents, 1,000 shoulders, and few choices. Service in Rome could be both school and sentence. Yet many freedmen rose from this life to comfort others in turn. The system recycled both soap and souls. You watch him vanish into steam, carrying obedience like a candle in fog. Attendants had their hierarchies too. The senior balnita supervised timing, water flow, and temperature complaints. When a senator shouted that the caldarium was too mild, it was the balnita who took the blame. Responsibility in Rome was as hot as the water it guarded. That mattered because even in paradise, someone answered for imperfection. It's customer service with divine stakes. You picture him nodding, sweating more from nerves than heat. They also carried gossip. No one heard more secrets than an attendant. Whispered confessions, flirtations, conspiracies. Many were rewarded for silence, others sold stories to the curious. Bathhouses leaked more than steam. This circulation of rumor mattered because it made baths the unofficial senate of whispers. Politics perfumed the air. You realized that in every civilization, power hides in those who serve it. Sometimes, the hand holding the towel knows more than the hand signing the decree. When guests fainted from heat, attendants revived them with cold cloths dipped in vinegar water. Their knowledge of anatomy was surprisingly sharp, passed down orally, tested by sweat. Medicine in the baths was empirical long before textbooks existed. It's first aid taught by repetition, not certification. You can almost feel that cool compress across your own forehead, the kindness of a stranger who expects no name. A few attendants specialized in timing the transitions between rooms, tapping bronze bowls to signal shifts. The sound was subtle but authoritative, a reminder that even leisure obeys rhythm. Rituals need conductors. That mattered because the Romans believed order was the spine of pleasure. Chaos ruined digestion and mood alike. It's project management in linen tunics. The tone rings softly, echoing like a heartbeat through stone. At the end of the day, attendants scrubbed the floors, polished bronze basins, and replaced wilted herbs in scent jars. They worked while the city slept, so the next dawn would feel effortlessly perfect. This maintenance mattered because continuity creates illusion. When you never see the cleaning, you start believing in magic. The attendants were magicians of mundane grace. You imagine their tired laughter echoing through empty halls, the sound of exhaustion disguised as pride. Sometimes they bathed last, a brief mercy granted by supervisors. The water was cooler, the oil cheaper, but the silence belonged entirely to them. In those moments, hierarchy melted. Steam made everyone equal again. That mattered because rest tastes sweetest when stolen. You can almost see them now. A few figures in the flickering light, washing soot from their arms, laughing softly, invisible kings of cleanliness. By dawn, the attendants fade into corridors, their sandals whispering against the marble like memories leaving footprints. The baths wake, pristine, as if comfort grew there naturally. But you've seen the truth, every drop of luxury distilled from labor. The empire runs on unseen hands, each gesture rehearsed, each kindness measured in hours. You exhale, letting gratitude settle. Tomorrow, the cycle begins again. Seamless, fragrant, endless. Steam curls upward, veiling marble like silk, and through it move silhouettes of Rome's social ladder, from sandal makers to senators, all dissolving briefly into the same mist. The baths were democracy in disguise, one of the few places where rank softened. Yet even in equality, subtleties lingered. The richer citizens carried finer oils, whiter towels, smoother skin. Status still shimmered through steam, quiet but unmistakable. You watch them mingle, and wonder if true equality ever survives luxury's reflection. Senators reclined on stone benches, discussing grain imports and military rumors, while attendants hovered with flasks of myrrh. Their laughter echoed like coins tumbling in amphorae. Conversation mattered as much as cleansing, networking scented with lavender. The tepidarium was as much a senate chamber as the forum, only warmer and better lit. Politics, after all, prefers comfortable seating. You can almost hear the wheeling and dealing disguised as friendly chatter, alliances lubricated by oil. Meanwhile, soldiers fresh from patrols wash dust from their skin, comparing scars like medals. The bath offered them a rare softness, an hour of civilization between campaigns. For them, the steam was forgiveness, a balm after discipline. Many scribbled names of lost comrades into wet plaster, ephemeral memorials gone by morning. These gestures mattered because memory survives better in ritual than in record. The steam carries their words upward, unread yet felt. A baker nearby chats with a senator's clerk about bread prices, both stripped to linen, hierarchy muted by humidity. Here, roles dissolved with the dirt. Rome's genius was making luxury public, turning cleansing into citizenship. The plebeian and patrician shared not wealth, but warmth. It's the original co-working space with better acoustics. You watch their small talk, the simple miracle of proximity melting distance more efficiently than politics ever could. Still, pride had its perfumes. Wealthier guests used imported oils scented with cinnamon, cassia, or Arabian myrrh. Their aroma trailed behind like titles. Smell was currency, a way to announce prosperity without words. The poor made do with local olive oil, plain and pure. Both glistened under lamplight, equal only in sheen. Its branding through fragrance, a silent resume. You inhale faint spice in the air, an invisible hierarchy carved in scent. A poet recites a few lines near the fountain, voice softened by echo. Public recitations were common here. Inspiration thrives where skin and stone both shine. Verse about love, empire, or laundry. Rome didn't discriminate. The baths nurtured creativity as much as gossip. That mattered because art requires audience, and steam is the kindest critic. The poet's words rise like bubbles, perfect for a second before dissolving. Farther along, a group of merchants compares tattoos of their trade guilds, anchors, amphorae, wheels. These marks, both identification and pride, became conversation starters. The baths were Rome's LinkedIn, where connections smelled of cedar and sweat. Commerce mingled with philosophy, laughter with policy, its networking with better acoustics and less small talk about weather. You smile, realizing empires run on conversations that start with "pass the sponge." A senator's wife passes through a side corridor reserved for women, her silk sandals whispering. Women's hours were separate, but no less elaborate. Smaller chambers, scented oils, and attendants who doubled as confidants. Gossip here could shift fortunes, arranging marriages or dismantling reputations. The baths became Rome's rumor factories, powered by steam and curiosity. You imagine her voice, soft but lethal, weaving influence between drops of water. Near the wall, a slave gently scrubs her mistress's back, both humming under their breath. The intimacy between them defies simplicity, affection, dependence, survival entwined. Such relationships mattered because Rome ran on invisible partnerships, emotional economies, unrecorded by historians. You see that in every slow gesture, service as language, touch as truce. Steam hides the labels, revealing only shared rhythm. The air grows thicker, heavy with the weight of perfume and politics. Somewhere, an argument flares between two men over seating. An ancient territorial instinct dressed in towels. A mediator steps in, voice low and calm, reminding them that peace was part of the etiquette. Baths were about composure, not conquest. Temperance was civic virtue, at least in theory. You can't fight in water without looking foolish. Both men laugh, pride cooling in vapor, lamps dim, reflecting on water's ripples like scattered coins. The scene is serene again, a painting of cooperation under condensation. The Romans managed what few cultures could. They made community feel luxurious. Cleanliness wasn't moral, it was mutual. Every drop of shared water polished the empire's image, not through conquest, but coexistence. You sit back, the warmth humming softly through you, and think maybe civilization begins wherever people learn to share heat. The steam thins as an attendant opens a vent, letting cooler air glide in. Voices quiet, breaths sink, and time resumes its silent march. You feel the unity fade. Soon, they'll leave, re-armoring themselves in rank and robes. But for this moment, in the haze of the bath, everyone glows alike. The empire's heartbeat slows to a single rhythm, then disperses. You close your eyes, keeping that rare equality alive a moment longer. Evening brings new guests, men who enter quietly, their eyes flicking toward corners before sitting. The baths were safe to talk, safer still to whisper. Steam made faces fluid, voices muffled, secrets dissolvable. Deals were struck here that never reached scroll or signature. In Rome, water was a diplomat. The warmth coaxed honesty better than wine ever could. You notice the stillness. The sound of politics uncloaked and almost human. Two senators lean close near the caldarium door, their tones hushed. They speak of grain shipments delayed by storms, of how fear might shift votes in the forum. Every conspiracy needs a temperature. Warmth lowers suspicion. Steam makes even betrayal feel intimate. Such exchanges mattered because the empire's veins ran not on marble, but murmurs. Its boardroom diplomacy scented with eucalyptus. You imagine their words condensing on tiles, dripping down as innocent droplets. In a shaded alcove, a freedwoman shares gossip with a merchant that the emperor's niece visits another bath in disguise, seeking prophecy from a Syrian attendant known for dream reading. Whether true or not, the story slithers through the chambers, multiplying like vines. Rumor here moves faster than fire. It mattered because information was Rome's quiet currency, traded in whispers long before gold changed hands. You can almost hear the ripple of curiosity spreading outward. Further inside, a philosopher reclines, eyes closed, reciting stoic thoughts between breaths of vapor. He tells anyone listening that all warmth is fleeting, all comfort illusion. People nod politely, half listening, half melting. Philosophy mattered here less as doctrine and more as decor, intellectual incense. The Romans enjoyed wisdom as background fragrance, its mindfulness with marble acoustics. You smile, hearing him remind everyone that the steam will rise whether they worry or not. A young couple laughs softly near the frigidarium entrance, their closeness both scandalous and ordinary. The baths were places of flirtation, society's grey zone between public and private. Laws forbade impropriety, yet boundaries blurred in humidity. Desire, like vapor, resists containment. That contradiction mattered because Rome's morality was performative, sin was often aesthetic. You watch them steal a glance and vanish into steam, history's favorite camouflage. At times, eavesdroppers hired by senators lurked nearby, pretending to scrub benches. Spying was as common as soap. Information flowed upward from slaves and attendants like bubbles. This espionage mattered because power loves omniscience. The baths became Rome's quiet newsroom, its headlines whispered between splashes, its journalism with towels. You imagine one of these listeners memorizing half a conversation, enough to twist truth profitably by sunset. In the corners, sculpted masks of marble, grotesques with open mouths, decorated the vents. Some believed they absorbed secrets. Others joked that the masks repeated confessions to the gods of steam. These superstitions mattered because they personified privacy. Even architecture listened in Rome, its surveillance with style. You glance at one such mask, its stone grin oddly knowing, and wonder what truths it's heard and never told. The laughter around fades into low hums. You can almost hear the pulse of the city mirrored in this room. Ambition softened, fear disguised, longing suspended. Baths were rehearsal for diplomacy. Patience in the heat, restraint in the crowd. Here, men learned to speak softly enough that even betrayal sounded civil. The art of politics was born not in the forum, but in the fog. An attendant passes, pouring scented oil into a brazier. The air fills with frankincense and cedar, aromas of sanctuaries and prayers. Scent sanctified conversation, disguising tension as serenity. It mattered because the Romans knew peace could be perfumed. You inhale the mix, smoke, sweat, sweetness, and realize even secrecy can smell divine. When the hour grows late, the conspirators rise, draping linen over glistening shoulders. No documents exchanged, no witnesses kept, yet decisions made will ripple through markets and marriages by dawn. The steam erases evidence, the marble forgets. That forgetfulness was the point. History's cleanest crimes are always water-soluble. You smile faintly, watching the last trace of their plotting dissolve into the sealing mist. As the chamber empties, you remain seated, the warmth wrapping your thoughts like linen. Secrets have texture here, soft, wet, vanishing before guilt can name them. The lamps flicker, their light bending like promises. You breathe slowly, letting the intrigue settle into the rhythm of the water, a pulse you can almost mistake for your own. Soon you'll rise too, leaving only steam to tell the truth. Not every Roman bather stepped beneath marble domes or silver fountains. In the quieter quarters of the city, smaller bathhouses, balnea, stood between bakeries and tenements, their walls cracked, their steam uneven but sincere. The air smelled of lime, wet clay, and borrowed comfort. These humble rooms mattered because they revealed the democracy of desire. Even the poorest citizen craved warmth and water. Civilization, it seems, begins wherever people learn to wash without shame. You walk inside one of these balnea, where voices echo in coarse Latin, rough as bread crust. The pool's edges are chipped, its water faintly cloudy with ash. Yet laughter rings here more freely than in the marble halls of senators. Wealth bought polish, poverty perfected community. These men and women shared towels, combs, and jokes, proof that luxury isn't always a question of stone, but of spirit. You watch them splash, carefree, baptizing fatigue into friendship. An old woman sits by the corner brazier, heating oil in a dented pan. She stirs it with a reed, adding sprigs of mint stolen from a neighbor's window box. Her hands move with priestly precision. For her, bathing is ceremony, the oil, her incense. Ritual survives where resources don't. It's the theology of the ordinary. You smell the sharp mint cut through smoke and think how grace often travels in small containers. Nearby, a brickmaker lowers himself into the tepid pool, sighing like a collapsing arch. His shoulders bloom with scars from labor, each line a record of Rome's ambition. The bath's warmth is his only inheritance. Still, he grins. Hot enough for Jupiter, he jokes, and everyone laughs. Humor matters more than hygiene here. It rinses bitterness better than soap. You smile with them, reminded that laughter multiplies faster in steam than sorrow ever could. Children dart between legs, tossing handfuls of water like blessings. No attendants scold them here. Chaos is the music of the poor. The baths of the people were symphonies of splash and chatter, unscored but sincere. That noise mattered because it kept despair off the walls. In marble baths, decorum silenced. Here, joy echoed. You hear it now, the chorus of small victories performed in puddles. In one corner, two men argue softly over philosophy they half remember from a street orator. Cicero says the soul is fire, one claims. Then we're gods when we sweat. The other answers. This exchange, clumsy and profound, matters because education leaks downward like water. Even the unlettered seek meaning between breaths of steam. It's the university of humidity. You find yourself nodding, grateful that wisdom wears no uniform. A cracked mosaic underfoot shows dolphins missing tails and waves turned to dust. Yet even broken art holds pride. The owner of this bath, a freedman named Lucius, keeps the floors swept and lamps trimmed. His bath survives on cheap oil and loyal neighbors. Community replaces marble here. Lucius laughs often, his belly round from generosity, not gluttony. He says business thrives because people will always pay to feel human. He's not wrong. A stray dog curls near the entrance, watching bathers with lazy eyes. Someone tosses him a bone, another a word of affection. Compassion here costs less because it's worth more. In wealthier baths, animals were unwelcome. In Balnea, they were mascots. The dog sighs, steam condensing on his fur like blessings. You crouch, pat his head, and he wags his tail once, grateful for a warmth that asks nothing back. Overhead, the plaster peels in patterns that look like constellations. The poor, lying on warm benches, point out imaginary stars. "That's Mars," says one. "No, that's a crack," laughs another. They name the universe anyway. Imagination keeps ceilings higher. These moments mattered because they turned survival into art. You watch them trace new heavens with calloused fingers, creating galaxies in decay. When the bath closes, the crowd drifts into alleys smelling of rain and smoke. Their skin shines, their spirits lighter. Tomorrow they'll return to carts, hammers and ovens, but tonight they've borrowed peace. Luxury fades, cleanliness lingers. Rome might never notice them, but its heartbeat depends on their laughter echoing through the cracks. You step outside too, carrying their warmth like a secret flame under your ribs. In the distance, the grand thermae send their pillars of steam skyward, proud and pale against the dusk. The little Balnea releases only wisps, quick to vanish. Yet warmth is warmth, no matter its altitude. Empires measure glory in marble, but history remembers kindness in clay. You look back one last time, the sound of laughter still bubbling, the mosaic dolphins forever swimming toward imperfect light. The women's baths hum differently, higher voices, faster laughter, perfume heavy as silk. Here, water glows amber under lamplight, carrying hints of rose, honey, and something metallic beneath. The sound of bracelets clinking. The women's hours mattered because they offered sanctuary in a world ruled by men. Steam became their parliament, perfume their politics. You step through the archway, and the air itself feels conspiratorial. Mothers bathe beside daughters, slaves beside matrons, their conversations weaving like threads in a tapestry. They discuss everything: childbirth, dowries, runaway lovers, even the latest scandal involving a senator's second wife. Gossip here is both armor and art. Shared stories, keeping loneliness at bay. The Romans might call it trivial, yet gossip was the empire's invisible glue. You listen to their laughter ripple across the pool, the sound of defiance disguised as delight. One matron applies a face mask of ground barley mixed with milk, spreading it with the precision of a priestess. Beauty rituals were part medicine, part meditation. Recipes circulated like poetry, crushed pearls for brightness, crocodile dung for bold believers, and honey for nearly everything else. Vanity mattered not from pride but from control. A woman's body was her canvas in a world that rarely let her speak. You watch her smear power in soft circles, luminous under steam. A group of young girls plucks eyebrows with bronze tweezers, comparing shapes as if sculpting destiny. Their giggles fill the chamber. Grooming was both self-expression and preparation for marriage. A mirror could be as political as a law scroll. You can't help but smile in a way that kid, this was their Senate too. Each decision debated in hair and laughter. It's democracy through vanity, scented with jasmine. In the corner, a midwife soaks her hands in warm water, whispering blessings for strength. Many healers worked from bathhouses, blending hygiene with care. Their knowledge of herbs and anatomy far outpaced the physician's theories written by men. Experience was their credential. That mattered because wisdom survives best in those who practice it quietly. You can almost hear her humming a melody older than empire, steady as heartbeat and breath. The air thickens with frankincense and crushed roses. Perfume was a language, worn not for seduction, but for solidarity. Certain scents marked allegiance: jasmine for matrons of wealth, myrrh for widows, and simple olive oil for slaves. Yet in steam, distinctions fade. Smell unites faster than rank divides. Its politics dissolved in fragrance. You breathe deeply, feeling the room shift into collective calm, everyone shining under the same golden haze. A slave girl pours water over her mistress's hair, braiding it afterward into a crown of glossy coils. She hums softly, eyes distant but peaceful. Service here is gentler, framed by care rather than command. Bonds bloom quietly where empire forbids equality. The woman thanks her servant by name, a small rebellion against anonymity. Gratitude, even whispered, is revolution. A philosopher's wife lounges nearby, reading aloud from a parchment of Sappho's verses. The words flutter through the air like petals. I will let my body flow like water over the gentle earth. Poetry in baths was common, sensual, safe, shared. Literature became the mirror these women were denied elsewhere. It mattered because art thrives where it's forbidden. You close your eyes, letting the syllables drift like perfume over your skin. From an adjoining chamber, laughter erupts. A fortune teller is at work, reading omens in the way steam swirls or how droplets trace down marble. It's nonsense, of course, but hopeful nonsense. Belief warms colder hearts. The Romans tolerated superstition as long as it smelled nice. You peek in. The seer winks at you knowingly, her face haloed in vapor. Maybe luck is just confidence in costume. Time slides gently toward dusk. The women rinse one last time, water sliding from shoulders like glass curtains. They wrap themselves in linen, skin gleaming, eyes soft. For a few hours, they've ruled their own empire, one of scent, warmth, and unhurried speech. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it hums through steam. You feel it still, the quiet strength of their laughter echoing long after the lamps dim. As they leave, the fragrance lingers. Rose, honey, sandalwood, a ghost bouquet hanging in the air. The chamber empties, but its warmth remains, proof that presence can perfume absence. The baths will open again tomorrow, and the empire will smell briefly sweeter. You smile, realizing history's true softness is always female, always fragrant, always patient. Long before the steam ever touched marble, before a single drop gleamed on a senator's shoulder, someone had to tame water itself. The engineers of Rome, the equerri and architecti, were the empire's quiet magicians. They made rivers climb hills and heat obey geometry. The baths, magnificent as temples, rested entirely on their invisible mathematics. This mattered because comfort without craftsmanship collapses. You stand now in their shadow, where the echo of dripping water sounds suspiciously like applause. Aqueducts snaked for miles across valleys, their arches tall as pride. Each stone set by hand, each gradient calculated by instinct and string. A single, misjudged angle could drown a district or dry a city. Precision here was faith. The engineers worshipped at the altar of gravity, their prayers whispered through lead pipes. It's plumbing as philosophy. Let what wants to flow, flow. You look up at a half-ruined aqueduct and still feel its purpose humming across centuries. Inside the bathhouses, channels hidden beneath floors carried water like veins. Bronze taps controlled the direction of comfort, tepid, hot, or cold. The balneator relied on these systems as priests rely on liturgy. Engineering mattered not as invention but as orchestration, every droplet playing its part in the empire's symphony of ease. You picture a young apprentice tracing blueprints by torchlight, dreaming of fountains that never run dry. The Hippocaust, Rome's radiant heart, deserves its own hymn. Hollow bricks and raised floors allowed hot air to circulate, turning stone into gentle skin. To stand on such a floor was to feel civilization itself breathing beneath you. The genius lay in simplicity. Air moved upward because it must. The Romans merely listened. Its sustainable design before anyone coined the term. You rest your hand on warm marble, feeling the ghost of perfect temperature. Maintenance was constant. Lime built up, pipes burst, valves jammed. Every miracle requires a mechanic. Slaves crawled through tunnels with hammers and buckets, their curses echoing like psalms of pragmatism. The glamour above depended on grime below. Its divine order supported by duct tape, you smile, some truths never age. The sound of their tools rings faintly even now, a metallic heartbeat keeping the empire's pulse regular. Outside the city, reservoirs glimmered like shallow lakes, guarded by soldiers. Water was wealth, more valuable than marble. To damage an aqueduct was treason, to repair one, sainthood. These laws mattered because Rome understood what modernity sometimes forgets. Infrastructure is morality made visible. You tilt your head, imagining an entire empire kneeling not before gods, but before pressure and flow. Every major bath complex bore an architect's pride etched in marble. Marcus Agrippa built this in service to the people. Names carved to last, though the men themselves faded into steam. Legacy here was literal. Stone engraved with water's gratitude. Its branding with humility. You run your fingers along one inscription, tracing grooves worn smooth by centuries of admiration. In some cities, thermal springs supplied the heat naturally, the earth itself cooperating with Roman ambition. Engineers merely redirected nature's generosity. They were translators between mountain and marble. The baths at Baiae, for instance, whispered with volcanic warmth, their pools bubbling like lazy thoughts. The Romans called such places gifts from the gods, conveniently taxable gifts. You smile, bureaucracy, it seems, flows as eternally as water. Night often found the engineers still awake, testing flow rates with floating candles. They'd watch the light drift through channels, timing the journey by heartbeat. These quiet experiments mattered because science was still intuition's twin. Equations slept unborn, yet precision thrived. You can see the candles glow, sliding past mossed stone, reflecting a future where curiosity never cools. To them, water wasn't substance, it was spirit. It moved, adapted, purified, persisted. The gods hide in motion, one old architect supposedly said, and water never stops praying. That sentiment mattered because it gave meaning to maintenance, holiness to plumbing. You breathe slower, almost reverent, as if the next drop might baptize your thoughts. Every empire writes its story on stone. Rome wrote on moisture. Aqueducts outlast armies because peace flows longer than conquest. You picture the engineers smiling, invisible authors of comfort. While others chased glory in marble, they designed serenity in motion. That's the kind of legacy you can drink. The steam above your head thickens again. The pipes hum like contented bees. You realize you're standing not in ruins, but in a heartbeat stretched through time. The architects are gone, but their water still moves. Civilization, perhaps, is just the art of keeping flow alive. Not every touch of warmth was gentle. Behind every gleam of marble stood the hands of those who could never own it. Slaves made up the majority of bath workers. Stokers, scrubbers, carriers, cleaners. Their fingerprints glistened invisibly on every tile. Rome's elegance floated atop their exhaustion. This mattered because luxury often disguises dependency. The baths were cathedrals of comfort built on calloused knees. You can almost feel their presence, still steaming through history. At dawn, slave women hauled baskets of firewood through narrow alleys, balancing them on their heads like crowns of necessity. Their feet left muddy crescents on polished stone before anyone else arrived. The first heat of the day belonged to them, not as comfort, but command. Without their labor, the baths would remain cold as politics. You hear their muffled laughter. Tired, unbroken, the kind only survival learns to sing. Some worked in teams called familia thermarum, entire households of servants belonging to a single bath complex. They shared duties, meals, and injuries. Among them existed quiet hierarchies, the older slaves teaching newcomers the delicate balance between obedience and endurance. That system mattered because even captivity organizes itself. Structure is the soul's stubborn rebellion. You imagine them swapping stories as they wring out linens, each tale a small defiance whispered through soap. The stench of burnt wood and wet feet filled their corridors. Hot water spilled on skin too often to count. Few lived long enough to enjoy the comfort they created. Yet, within that hardship, tenderness sparked. One slave might hold another's hand through fever, or share stolen figs from a patron's leftovers. Compassion survives anywhere it's needed most. You picture a man dabbing a friend's forehead with cool cloth, both silent, both human, beneath the soot. Children born in service learn to mimic their parents' rhythm before they could read. Tiny hands fetched towels, polished lamps, swept leaves from entrances. Rome claimed them early, grooming them into the machinery of elegance, its inheritance rewritten as labor. The tragedy is familiar, innocence recycled into routine. You think of them whenever a modern convenience hums too easily. Yet some found strange pride in their precision. A clean marble floor reflected more than light. It reflected purpose. To make something beautiful, even under command, steadies the spirit. "We keep Rome clean," they might have said, with a weary smile. That dignity mattered because oppression can't crush pride completely. It only changes its reflection. You nod to their ghosts, the quiet custodians of civilization's mirror. Occasionally, a generous patron granted freedom, manumissio, to an aging servant. The newly freed would stay near the baths anyway, unable to leave the rhythm that defined them. They'd keep polishing, not for orders, but for habit. Freedom felt heavier without routine. You understand that paradox. Comfort and captivity often share the same temperature. Runaways existed too, desperate souls slipping through alleys at dusk, seeking shadows instead of steam. Most were caught. Rome's walls had ears, and its streets never forgot faces. But for a few, freedom meant anonymity in another city, another bath, under another name. Hope traveled best in bare feet. You imagine one such figure disappearing into mist, the first breath of freedom indistinguishable from steam. Some slaves became healers within the baths, their knowledge of herbs and water temperatures surpassing formal physicians. They treated cuts, aches, fevers, quietly, competently. Skill was survival, reputation their only protection. Their legacy mattered because healing doesn't ask for permission. It simply happens. You can almost hear their calm voices, instructing bathers to breathe slower, soak longer, trust warmth. At night, when everyone else had gone, a few lingered by the pools, dipping hands into the still, hot water. For a fleeting moment, they shared what they'd given away all day. That brief luxury, solitude, warmth, silence, was rebellion disguised as rest. You see them in your mind, reflections trembling, faces half lit by dying lamps. For those seconds, they belonged to themselves. Empires forget their laborers, but stone remembers. Every step you take echoes against floors worn by those who walked without names. The baths gleam, but beneath the polish lies sacrifice, the invisible architecture of effort. You exhale softly, a silent toast to the forgotten, the ones who made history clean enough to admire. Then as the steam curls upward, you whisper gratitude into the haze, and it carries your words back to them. The sun slides toward evening, and the heat of the day mellows into golden syrup. Just beyond the bath's final chambers, courtyards bloom with laughter and the scent of roasted barley, figs, and wine. The Romans rarely left the baths hungry. Appetite was ritual's final act. Vendors gathered like satellites around the steam, offering oysters, bread, sausages sizzling on iron pans. It's the empire's version of post-gym smoothies, except these ones come with poetry and gossip. Platters clatter, cups collide, and the air thickens again, not with steam now, but with spice. Food and water were twins in Roman thought. Both restored balance, both celebrated control over nature. Dining after bathing mattered because the body was freshly tuned, clean enough to deserve pleasure. The Romans saw no sin in satisfaction, excess, maybe, but not joy. You breathe in garlic, honey, and the faint smoke of olive wood, the scent of civilization winding down. A pair of musicians pluck strings near the fountain, their melody looping softly between bites. Music was as essential as salt. It flavored silence. Patrons reclined on benches, towels still around their waists, sharing jokes about senators and chariot teams. Banter mattered. It rinsed the mind one last time. Humor was Rome's social soap. You can almost hear it. Gentle teasing under the stars, words dissolving into night like laughter into wine. A server pours mulsum, honeyed wine, thick and amber. It glows like melted sunlight. Romans believed sweet drinks soothed the spirit after heat, binding body and pleasure together. This small science of satisfaction mattered. They understood that rhythm sustains wellness. Heat, chill, hunger, indulgence. It's wellness before hashtags. You sip the wine, and its warmth curls through you like forgiveness. Nearby, a group of philosophers argues whether virtue tastes better with cheese or olives. No one wins, of course. That isn't the point. Disagreement was sport, as harmless as wrestling in the palestra. Such debates mattered because they turned intellect into entertainment. Even the wise needed an audience. You smile, thinking every civilization needs its talkers, so the rest can eat in peace. On the other side of the courtyard, A cook flips flatbread on a bronze plate, dusting it with crushed herbs. He hums an old marching tune while children dance nearby. Labor, for once, smells delicious. The cook's pride in simple craft is contagious, each bite a sermon about small perfections. In Rome, food was never merely survival, it was performance. You take a bite, and the crunch tells its own story. Fruit sellers display pyramids of dates and pomegranates, jewels under lamplight. Their abundance feels almost defiant, a promise that the world, though unpredictable, still provides. Abundance mattered not as vanity but assurance. When you've conquered hunger, the gods seem merciful. You roll a grape between your fingers, cool and wet, and wonder if gratitude might taste like this. Farther down the street, freedmen celebrate their day's earnings. They toast each other loudly, some already drunk, some pretending not to be. Their laughter cuts through the air, raw and honest. The baths have washed away status for the evening. Here, everyone's story foams at the rim of the same cup. It's democracy in wine. You watch them clink cups, their joy louder than ambition, their pride louder than history. Women pass carrying trays of honey cakes, warm and soft enough to collapse under touch. The sweetness leaves your fingers sticky, and you lick them without shame. Romans measured virtue differently after dark. Pleasure was no sin once the chores were done. It's a theology of timing, moderation, not abstinence. You laugh quietly, crumbs catching the candlelight like stars. As the music slows, an older man stands and raises his cup, reciting a few lines of Virgil, something about fields, fate, and the gentle work of men. His voice trembles but holds. The crowd falls silent, half reverent, half tipsy. Poetry, like wine, blurs edges and softens hearts. You realize that Rome's greatness wasn't built in its speeches, but in these moments. Collective stillness dressed as noise. The night thickens, and lamps float like orange moons. Servers clear plates. Children doze against their mothers' knees, and the air hums with exhaustion disguised as bliss. The baths may have cleansed the body, but the feast sanctifies it. This, too, is ritual. The pause before sleep, the full belly, the loosened tongue. You lean back, the stars wobbling above you, and sigh like a man convinced that peace is edible. Somewhere behind the laughter, a fountain still runs, steady, patient, eternal. The Romans built permanence into pleasure, ensuring water would outlast wine. That rhythm matters because it teaches continuity. Tomorrow, they'll bathe again, eat again, gossip again, the empire humming through repetition. You close your eyes and let the fountain's murmur dissolve the feast into dream. Not all came for leisure. Some arrived limping, coughing, broken in bone or spirit. The baths were hospitals disguised as havens. Roman physicians prescribed heat like medicine, sweat for fevers, cold plunges for inflammation, aromatic oils for melancholy. They understood health not as cure, but balance. The body was a fire needing guidance, not extinguishing. You step into the balneum medicum, where steam smells of pine, vinegar, and hope. Here, attendants grind herbs into paste, rosemary for circulation, chamomile for nerves, fennel for eyes. The air feels alive with chemistry. Patients sit quietly, letting time perform its surgery. Medicine mattered because belief amplified its power. The Romans healed through conviction as much as science. You inhale the sharp scent of herbs, and it feels like breathing reason itself. One man soaks his hands in warm brine, whispering gratitude to Neptune. His joints ache from years as a fisherman. The salt water, drawn from nearby wells, mimics the sea he once served. Healing here is poetic. A man returned to his element. The bath becomes memory's therapist. He smiles faintly, eyes closing, as if listening to distant waves. Another woman lies beside a copper basin filled with hot sand. Attendants press linen packets of it onto her stomach, relieving pain. Heat as anesthetic, earth as ally. Crude but effective. Romans believed the body mirrored the planet, dry, wet, hot, cold. Balance these, and wellness returns. It's holistic before the word existed. You watch the sand darken with use, still warm as kindness. At the far end, a doctor traces veins on a patient's leg with a reed explaining blood's mysterious journey. He has no microscope, only intuition and courage. Early medicine was faith in observation. These lessons mattered because they humanized science. Ignorance paired with curiosity is still progress. You nod to him, the pioneer armed with water and will. Steam softens wounds, cleanses infections. Even the poorest could afford to soak in the communal basins, their ailments temporarily lighter. Public health began here, born from vanity and necessity. Rome's genius wasn't luxury, it was logistics. The baths made hygiene a civic virtue. You realize that every drop of sweat is an act of prevention. Civilization, at heart, is organized cleanliness. In another room, masseurs use wine vinegar as antiseptic, rubbing it along cuts before applying oil. It stings, then soothes. Pain was expected, even welcomed. The proof that healing had begun. If it burns, one attendant jokes, it's working. Humor as anesthesia, laughter as prescription. You grin despite yourself, the warmth working its way into your own tired muscles. Children chase each other between benches, pretending to be doctors. They mimic the rubbing motions, the serious nods. Play imitates profession. The next generation learns medicine through mischief. That mattered because curiosity survives best when disguised as fun. You watch them and think, maybe progress is just play with patience. A soldier lies still in the corner, his leg bandaged with strips of linen soaked in warm oil. He sighs with something like gratitude, not to the gods, but to the hands tending him. Healing in the baths blurred social lines again. Everyone bleeds the same temperature. The room smells faintly of iron and olive. You close your eyes, feeling that truth settle deeper than heat. The lamps dim as patients drift into drowsy silence. Water sloshes quietly, a lullaby written by gravity. Recovery isn't loud, it's the whisper of pain turning into rest. The baths teach patience, a virtue as rare as it is healing. You breathe with them, your chest rising in rhythm with 100 unseen lungs. When dawn returns, the healed and hopeful step back into the city. Their bodies may still ache, but something lighter follows them. The scent of steam, of renewal. Medicine here was never about miracles. It was about permission to begin again. You step out too, feeling oddly whole, as if the warmth had stitched you into the present. Healing, you realize, is just another word for remembering softness. When the day's noise fades and the city exhales, the bathhouses do not sleep. They glow. Moonlight catches on mist, turning the marble silver blue. Lamps burn low and steady, fed by the last pools of oil. The air is quieter now. Voices thinned to whispers, footsteps soft as prayer. Night mattered because it gave Rome permission to feel small again. Beneath all its power, the empire still needed rest. You can almost hear the moon breathing with the water. The attendants move slower, no longer rushing. Their sandals shuffle instead of strike. The crowd has dwindled to poets, guards on leave, and dreamers, people who prefer silence as company. Steam drifts through open arches into the night, a ghost of luxury released into the dark. The scent of lavender and salt lingers like memory itself. It's the hour when Rome's pulse lowers, and the baths hum in sync with the stars. Outside, the streets are half deserted, but stray music from taverns flirts with the air. Inside, only the sound of dripping water breaks the hush. Each drop hits the pool like a tiny heartbeat, then disappears. That rhythm mattered. It slowed the mind, softened time. The Romans never called it meditation, but that's what it was. You sit near the fountain, feeling your own breath trying to match the sound. A man sits across the pool, tracing shapes on his thigh with wet fingers. Maybe he's thinking of a woman, or a debt unpaid, or a line of poetry. The baths at night became confessionals without priests. Steam made privacy communal. Everyone half visible, half forgiven. You look away, granting him silence, and feel the same gentleness circle back to you. The moon reflects on the water, trembling but patient. Its light touches everything equally. See the clean, the cracked, the humble. No rank survives in moonlight. That mattered because equality, if only for an hour, keeps the soul from hardening. You tilt your head back, letting the cool glow rest on your eyelids, and think how even marble blushes under this kind of grace. Somewhere deeper in the building, a janitor hums a tune from his homeland, something Eastern, winding and minor. The melody floats like smoke catching on columns, soothing the stone. The Romans stole empires but adopted songs freely. Culture here was mosaic, just like the floors. You listen, realizing beauty doesn't care where it's born, only that it's heard. A pair of lovers enters quietly, hand in hand. They laugh once, softly, then slip into the tepid pool. The sound of their laughter folds into the air without disturbing it. Affection in Rome wore no uniform. It hid best in warmth. The baths allowed what daylight forbade. This subtle rebellion mattered because softness, shared, is its own kind of strength. You smile, pretending not to see, letting their secret remain safe in the steam. A stray cat wanders in, paws silent on marble, tail high like a scepter. It approaches the pool, drinks delicately, then curls beside a pillar to sleep. Even animals trusted the baths. Safety radiates. It doesn't need walls. The cat's purr hums with the same rhythm as the hippocaust below. An accidental duet of species. You chuckle quietly. Empires crumble. But cats will always claim the warmest stone. As the last guests drift home, the air cools slightly, the lamps dim lower, and shadows grow kind. Attendants extinguish wicks, their fingers practiced and gentle. Darkness slides down the walls like velvet. The silence now isn't empty, it's full of afterthoughts. The baths have become memory in real time. You breathe it in, the faint mingling of oil, smoke, and marble dust. From the city beyond, the faint toll of a night bell reaches the chamber. It marks the hour when bakers wake, when guards change shifts, when the first fires are lit again. The baths, for a moment, exist between worlds. Not day, not night, not Rome, not dream. You feel that in your chest, a pause that doesn't demand continuation. You rise, wrapping the towel around your shoulders. The air kisses your skin coolly, sealing in the warmth like an unspoken promise. The moon still hangs above the courtyard, serene, indifferent, eternal. For a civilization obsessed with permanence, this is the closest they'll come. You stand a moment longer, then step outside, carrying the steam with you like borrowed time. The city greets you in hush. Fountains murmur, windows flicker, cobblestones shine. You realize the baths have changed you, subtly, not cleaner, but quieter. Night in Rome isn't about sleep, it's about remembering the body belongs to the earth, not ambition. You walk away slowly, the marble glow fading behind you, knowing you've left a piece of your noise in the water. Before Rome called it hygiene, it called it holiness. Bathing was older than plumbing. It began as prayer. The first Romans washed before meals, before vows, before entering temples. Purity was proximity to the divine. By the empire's height, marble replaced altars, but reverence remained. The baths were cathedrals of warmth. Every droplet shimmered with something spiritual. You can almost hear the prayers disguised as small talk. In the corners of great bathhouses stood tiny shrines to Fortuna, Venus, or Apollo, guardians of luck, beauty, and healing. Offerings of oil, flowers, or coins gleamed faintly beside the basins. These rituals mattered because they turned comfort into gratitude. Even the proudest Roman bowed briefly to the unseen. It's the human instinct to whisper thank you, even when no one's listening. You watch a man drop a coin, hear it kiss the water, and vanish. Priests sometimes visited, blessing the waters on feast days. They believed the baths absorbed divinity like skin absorbs oil. Worship mixed easily with pleasure here. Rome's gods were practical, unbothered by luxury. Holiness didn't need austerity, only awareness. It's religion with good acoustics. You picture incense curling through steam, sacred and mundane sharing the same exhale. For soldiers returning from war, purification was mandatory. They bathed before seeing family, cleansing not just dirt, but omen. The Romans believed that unwashed blood angered the household spirits, that superstition mattered because it turned hygiene into morality. To be clean was to be safe, physically and spiritually. You imagine a veteran kneeling by the pool, eyes closed, whispering the names of those who didn't return. In rural baths near springs, worship went deeper. Literally, natural hot waters were said to host nymphs, ancient deities of healing. Locals brought honey cakes and wine, leaving them at the edge. No one ever saw the nymphs, of course, but every ripple felt like acknowledgement. Faith was sensory, not theoretical. It's theology conducted in temperature. You touch the water, half expecting something eternal to touch back. Some emperors claimed divine favor through bathing habits. Hadrian built entire temples within his baths, carving reliefs of gods washing alongside mortals. Propaganda disguised as piety, but still beautiful. It mattered because Rome's rulers understood optics. Sanctity looks better with steam. You imagine courtiers pretending reverence while eyeing each other's reflections, ambition masked by humility's perfume. Curses, too, were washed away here. Clay tablets etched with names and misdeeds sank into drains as offerings to underworld spirits. If fortune smiled, the wrongdoer's next bath would scald slightly hotter. Justice through plumbing. Poetic, if inefficient, you grin, half admiring the superstition. Steam has always been a good listener for revenge. Many ordinary citizens simply prayed for ordinary things. Good harvests, faithful spouses, fewer aches. The baths democratized prayer. Everyone could petition a god between rinses. That accessibility mattered. Divinity without distance comforted more than temples ever could. You watch an old woman trace a cross-shaped gesture, not Christian yet, but close, and whisper to any deity willing to multitask. As the empire aged, religion fragmented. Christians condemned the baths as vanity, yet built their own, later, holier versions. Pagan or Christian, the impulse remained. Water as cleansing, warmth as mercy. Faith changes names, not functions. You see that pattern stretching forward. Monasteries, spas, hospitals, all descendants of Rome's devotion to the healing touch of temperature. Even now, in ruins, those pools still feel alive. Tourists toss coins, photographers whisper, pigeons bathe where emperors once did. Time has replaced incense with sunlight, but reverence remains. You stand there in imagination, your reflection trembling with history's breath. The gods may have moved on, but the water still remembers the sound of prayer. You exhale, the steam around you blurring vision into feeling. Maybe holiness was never about belief. Maybe it was simply the act of slowing down, of listening to your own heartbeat echo against marble. The Romans, without knowing it, perfected devotion in motion. Cleanliness, divinity, rest, all the same temperature. You let that thought linger, glowing softly in your chest like the last coal in the furnace below. Every bath had its own music, not flutes or lyres, but the unintentional symphony of civilization at ease. You hear it now, sandals scuffing, laughter rebounding off vaults, water trickling from bronze spouts, a towel snapping in the distance. Beneath it all, the slow pulse of the hippocaust hums like a heartbeat. The Romans didn't call it ambience, they called it normal life. That mattered because sound stitched the city together, proof that peace still had a rhythm. Architects designed these acoustics on purpose. Curved ceilings amplified whispers but softened shouts. Columns broke echoes into gentle layers. Even chaos here was curated. Rome engineered serenity as deliberately as aqueducts. The noise never overwhelmed, it cocooned. It's early sound therapy, centuries before playlists. You close your eyes, and the voices melt into vibration, a city breathing in unison. A vendor calls out from the courtyard, his tone rising above the murmurs like a bird over surf. Olives, fresh olives, warm bread. The echo bounces back softer, wrapped in steam. Markets and baths blended soundscapes. Commerce beside contemplation. This proximity mattered because it reminded everyone that rest and sustenance were neighbors. The Romans built their philosophy into their acoustics, harmony without silence. You smile, realizing even rest required collaboration. Some evenings, musicians played near the atrium fountains, simple melodies looping through the corridors. Harp strings thrummed against dripping water, blending man-made and natural. The result was hypnotic. Attendants said guests lingered longer when the music played, as if the building itself had learned lullabies. That mattered because Rome valued continuity more than novelty. Comfort doesn't demand surprise, it asks for repetition. You listen, lulled by patterns you already understand. Children's laughter rings from the cold plunge, bright, metallic, free of politics. Their shrieks cut through the heavy warmth like light-breaking clouds. The sound of youth inside stone temples was an act of rebellion against mortality. It reminded the old that the world still refreshed itself. That mattered because vitality was contagious. You catch yourself smiling as one boy splashes another, and for a heartbeat, you forget the empire's weight entirely. Somewhere deeper, the furnace coughs. A low, throaty exhale followed by a hiss. The stokers are feeding it again. That sound is less soothing, more primal. It anchors the luxury above in labor below. It's the basso continuo of the Roman soundtrack. Without that heat, all this melody would freeze. You tilt your head, recognizing how every civilization has its drones, steady, necessary, unnoticed. A stray conversation drifts your way. Two poets debating whether time or fame ages faster. Their laughter dissolves before the words reach sense, leaving only tone. It's comforting how meaning fades but warmth remains. Speech, after all, is just shaped air. In a bathhouse, air itself feels sculpted, visible, tangible, alive. You breathe it in and become part of the dialogue, another syllable in the empire's sentence. When the crowd swells at midday, the sound becomes oceanic. Thousands of voices blur into a single wash of human weather. The baths sound like rain, droplets of conversation colliding, merging, disappearing. Noise as communion. The Romans believed shared sound built trust. To hear someone breathe beside you was to remember you weren't alone. You let the murmur fill you, feeling smaller, safer, surrounded. Occasionally, an orator visits, standing near the entrance to test his voice. The domes give back perfect echo, flattering every syllable. Politicians rehearsed here before the Senate. Steam as rehearsal partner. The baths trained the art of persuasion as much as comfort. You imagine Cicero practicing arguments naked, steam curling around his rhetoric. Power rarely feels as human as it does without clothes. At dusk, the soundscape changes again. The splashes soften, laughter thins, sandals grow quieter, the baths exhale. Each closing door lowers the volume by degrees until only the fountains remain. Water becomes soloist again. That shift mattered because silence means survival. It lets the system reset. The Romans didn't chase constant noise. They knew when to fade to quiet. You sit alone now, hearing your heartbeat bounce off the walls. The echo comes back slower, older, wiser. Sound here teaches patience. Every noise must travel and return before it can be understood. You exhale, listening to your breath circle the dome, and realize even silence, in Rome, was designed to resonate. As the last echoes drift away, you find comfort not in music, but in its memory. The baths are quiet, but the air still trembles faintly. Proof that something beautiful happened here and refused to vanish completely. The Romans might call that eternity, you just call it listening. Every wall in the baths was a canvas. Painters, sculptors, and mosaic makers turned heat into muse. You can see it now. Frescoes alive with nymphs and dolphins, mosaics swirling in blues and golds, statues glistening with condensation. Art in the baths wasn't decoration, it was participation. Romans believed beauty calmed the pulse, so they made it omnipresent. The baths were galleries that sweated. You feel the color as much as you see it. Mosaicists knelt for months, setting tiny tiles, each no larger than a fingernail. They worked barefoot to sense vibration through the floor. Heat guided their choices of hue. Warm areas took cool colors. Cooler walls wore reds and golds. The art obeyed temperature like faith. That discipline mattered because it unified sensory and spiritual balance. You imagine a craftsman smiling as a dolphin's tail finally fits its tide. Painters used pigments mixed with wax and ash, brushing scenes of gods and gardens across plaster before it dried. Fresco meant fresh. Art made in haste, but lasting centuries. The moisture in the air sealed it like breath. The Romans didn't trap beauty in frames, they let it bleed into architecture, its interior design as devotion. You reach out, half expecting to feel the wings of a painted Cupid flutter under your fingertips. Sculptors placed marble figures at corners, their surfaces glistening in perpetual sweat. Venus wringing her hair, Hercules leaning on his club, river gods reclining among urns. Their expressions were calm, their bodies soft despite stone. That softness mattered. Rome adored strength, but here it worshipped serenity. Even heroes needed rest. You study one statue's lips, slightly parted, as if mid-sigh. Light played its own role. Architects angled windows to spotlight certain mosaics at specific hours. Morning lit the dolphins. Evening caressed Venus. The sun became an accomplice. The choreography between art and time turned the baths into moving paintings. You realize Rome mastered what modern museums still chase, atmosphere that changes you without effort. Workers polished marble daily with pumice and oil until it shone like still water. Reflection was another kind of art. People saw themselves twice, once in flesh, once in stone. That mirroring mattered because self-awareness was civic virtue. Cleanliness extended to conscience. You glance at your own faint reflection and wonder what version of you the marble remembers. Graffiti crept in too. Little poems, jokes, declarations of love scratched into plaster. I bathed with Julia and forgot my sandals, one reads. These human fingerprints undercut grandeur with mischief. Art isn't complete until it's defaced lovingly. It's the empire's wink to itself. You grin, imagining some worker laughing centuries later while polishing around the words. Even the drains bore ornament, faces of satyrs and sea creatures carved into outlets where water fled. Function and beauty shared no boundaries here. Romans refused to leave ugliness anywhere, not even underfoot. That ideal mattered because aesthetics were ethics, order as morality. You feel it under your toes, the quiet insistence that nothing should be careless. Artists were rarely credited. Their signatures hid in corner tiles, a secret rebellion. One wrote, "Felix fecit." Felix made this beside a dolphin's eye. That small defiance matters because art survives even when names don't. You whisper his name again, giving it another life. When heat rose, colors deepened. When steam thinned, outlines softened. The room itself changed expression throughout the day. Art and temperature danced, each feeding the other. This interplay taught patience. Nothing beautiful stays static. You exhale, watching condensation trace over a mosaic of waves, blurring it into motion. Even in ruin, the baths remain galleries. Sunlight falls on fractured frescoes, birds nest in statue hollows, rainwater revives the colors. Time hasn't destroyed the art, it's merely edited it. The Romans built for permanence but achieved evolution instead. You smile. The best masterpieces keep breathing. You lean back, letting your gaze drift across the shimmer of tile and reflection. Beauty, warmth, and water. Three elements Rome refused to separate. The baths taught the empire that art isn't luxury, it's medicine. And tonight, in the hush of your imagination, that medicine still works. The hour is late now, and the bathhouse breathes slower, like a great animal easing into dreams. Lamps shrink to amber pearls. The last attendants move softly, their sandals whispering against damp marble. Outside, Rome still murmurs. The shuffle of carts, a drunk's distant song, but inside, time has dissolved. Steam drifts lazily through the air, carrying the scent of olive oil and fading fire. You feel your heartbeat echo gently through the chamber, syncing with water's eternal pulse. The pools no longer ripple with laughter or footsteps. They lie still, mirrors of the ceiling's shadows. Even the gods in stone seem to rest, their carved eyes half closed. The water remembers the day, the heat, the voices, the small dramas of men and women who sought comfort here. Memory gathers in droplets along the arches, sliding down in slow trails. You reach out, letting one fall on your wrist. It feels like the world acknowledging your quiet presence. Outside the bath's thick walls, the Tiber flows in moonlight, another artery of memory. The city dreams beside it, bakers stoking ovens, guards pacing softly, lovers tangled in linen. The Romans built their empire on movement, but tonight even conquest sleeps. Stillness becomes sacred when earned. The water understands this. Its patience outlasts ambition. You inhale deeply, the warmth holding you as gently as breath itself. A small sound breaks the hush, a single drop falling into the pool. Its ring expands, touching every corner of the room before fading. That faint circle of sound feels infinite, as if the entire empire is suspended in that one moment of impact. The baths teach you that silence isn't absence, it's the shape of peace. You watch the ripples flatten again, and it feels like forgiveness. You lean against the marble edge, the stone cool against your back. The contrast between warmth and cold sharpens awareness until it softens again. The mind begins to slow its spin, thoughts lose their edges, dissolving like salt in water. The baths were always meant for this, to remind the restless that rest is not a luxury, but a discipline. You let the discipline take you. The scent of smoke lingers faintly from the hippocaust below. It's the smell of continuation, of labor already finished but not forgotten. Someone will stoke the fires again before dawn, and the cycle will begin anew. Continuity comforts you. Life, too, repeats. Different faces, same warmth, same need to cleanse, to pause, to begin again. The Romans called this rhythm virtues, excellence, found in constancy. You tilt your head back, eyes half open. Steam coils upward in soft spirals, catching the moonlight through the oculus. It looks almost alive, like breath from the lungs of the world. In it, you see the ghosts of bathers past, faint silhouettes laughing, stretching, rinsing away centuries. The water remembers them all, senators, slaves, strangers, equal in dissolution. History becomes humidity, and you, for this brief moment, belong entirely to it. There's a hum beneath the silence, not sound, but sensation. The kind you feel rather than hear, vibrating deep in the ribs. Maybe it's the hypocaust. Maybe it's your own heartbeat meeting the rhythm of the floor. Either way, it's steady, ancient, kind. The city's pulse runs through you, whispering, breathe slower, you obey. The world shrinks to temperature and trust. Your skin glows faintly in the dim light, a quiet proof of being alive. The Romans didn't need words like mindfulness. They simply built it into stone. Here, reflection is literal. Water mirrors your calm back to you. The surface trembles once, then smooths, holding your shape perfectly before letting it go. You smile, knowing that's what peace is. The art of release. From somewhere above, night birds call softly over the rooftops. Their sound floats down through the open vents, a gentle punctuation between breaths. The baths respond with a faint echo, turning the world into dialogue. You are both listener and participant, your stillness another instrument in the orchestra of rest. The air grows heavier now, sweeter. You feel yourself slipping between thought and dream. The marble's solidity fades, replaced by weightlessness. This is what the Romans built without knowing it, a space for surrender. Not to gods, not to sleep, but to the kind of peace that asks nothing. You let go, and the water, warm and patient, receives everything you no longer need to hold. Somewhere deep below, the last coal glows, defiant against the dark. Its heat will fade soon, but not before you do. The baths hum softly, content. You close your eyes, the scent of smoke and stone merging into something eternal. When the city sleeps, the water remembers, and tonight it remembers you too. You sit in the tepidarium again, though time feels slippery now, half real. The air hums with warmth and faint light, as if the lamps themselves were tired. The marble floor mirrors the soft shimmer of the pool, making it hard to tell where stone ends and water begins. The boundaries blur, between body and building, between past and present. The Romans called this harmonia, the balance between opposites. Tonight, you live inside that word. The surface of the water trembles slightly, disturbed by a breath or a thought. You see your reflection ripple and settle again. It's not entirely you anymore, softer, stretched, older, maybe wiser. The baths do that. They turn mirrors into teachers. You've washed away the dust of ambition, the ash of effort. What remains is gentler, the person beneath performance. The Romans believed the baths purified the soul through the body. You're starting to understand how. The marble walls glow faintly, their veins like rivers of moonlight frozen mid-flow. If you stare long enough, they seem to move, carrying centuries of echoes through their veins. Architecture here isn't structure, it's memory wearing stoner's skin. You trace a crack with your fingertip, and it feels like touching time itself. Beneath all the polish, the baths have aged gracefully. Proof that even perfection can soften without breaking. Somewhere behind you, a faint drip echoes. Each drop lands with a sound that could be a clock or a lullaby. The Romans didn't measure time by seconds, but by sensations. Heat, light, silence. You find yourself counting in warmth instead of numbers. It's slower, truer. The day uncoils like silk, and for the first time in a while, you're not chasing it. Time flows again like water, around you, not through you. You close your eyes and listen to your own breath bouncing off the walls. It comes back slightly delayed, as if the building itself is breathing with you. This companionship matters more than words. The Romans understood this. They built spaces that exhaled. Maybe that's why these baths endured while empires didn't. Stillness outlives conquest. You smile, letting the thought dissolve before it becomes pride. The air tastes faintly of minerals, salt, and something floral. Maybe rosemary, maybe memory. You can't tell anymore. Sensation replaces certainty. That's how relaxation works. It trades precision for peace. You imagine this same scent drifting through the centuries, clinging to emperors, artisans, lovers. The water holds their trace molecules, and somehow that doesn't feel haunting. It feels like community. A soft wind slips through the oculus, brushing your skin. The temperature dips just enough to remind you you're still alive. Cold wakes gratitude. Romans alternated between hot and cold, not just for health, but for awareness. The body only learns peace through contrast. You feel it now, the whisper of chill against warmth, the pulse of being between. You open your eyes again. The reflection returns, steadier now. The face looking back seems to know something you've forgotten: how to be enough. The baths don't judge, they reveal. In steam, everyone's face equalizes, features blurred into simple presence. You could be anyone, anywhere. Identity melts into essence. The Romans might call it the soul's steam, what rises when you stop holding shape. Somewhere in the distance, you hear laughter, faint but familiar. It could be centuries away or just outside the door. Time feels porous here. The baths remind you that the past never really leaves. It lingers, warm and watchful. You wonder if some ancient bather once felt the same. A heartbeat slowing, a thought softening, a realization arriving too quietly to startle. The pool ripples once more, this time from your sigh. The circles widen, brushing the edges of the marble, reflecting the lamps in dancing patterns. It looks like stars scattered across the surface of a night sky that happens to be indoors. The Romans mirrored the cosmos in everything they built. Order above, order below. You understand now. To bathe was to align oneself with the universe's rhythm. The last lamp flickers. Its flame leans, then steadies. You feel weightless, part of the architecture, part of the echo. Your mind drifts like steam, untethered, tranquil. The baths no longer feel external. They feel interior, as if you've entered the warmest chamber of your own memory. You close your eyes again. The marble hums faintly under your fingertips, whispering what every Roman already knew. Peace is not found, it's remembered. Somewhere deep below, the last coals sigh in the furnaces. Their glow flickers between orange and gold, painting slow-moving constellations on the low brick ceiling. The air above them still trembles, alive with the ghost of heat. You imagine the stokers asleep now, their work done, the fires they fed all day finally tamed to embers. This, too, is beauty, the kind that exists only in decline. Every warmth must someday learn how to cool. The hypercaust exhales gently, a final breath after hours of steady devotion. Its whisper rises through the floors, threading between stone and water like an invisible lullaby. You can almost hear gratitude in it, the sound of a system resting after perfection. The Romans built their comfort to echo human rhythm, effort, release, silence. That cycle mattered more than heat itself. You listen as the floor cools, warmth migrating upward until it meets your skin and fades. A faint rustling comes from the corridor, linen brushing stone. Attendants are covering the benches, folding towels still warm from use. Their movements are careful, almost ritualistic. Maintenance, here, feels like prayer. To prepare for tomorrow is to honor today. You watch one servant pause by the furnace vent, hand hovering above it, stealing one last bit of heat before it dies. Even exhaustion, it seems, can love its labor. The lamps are fewer now. Their flames wobble, small suns trapped in glass. Shadows spill softly down the walls, turning columns into half-remembered dreams. The baths have shifted tone, from celebration to sanctuary, from chatter to hum. The Romans understood what most civilizations forget. Endings are supposed to soothe, not startle. This fade matters. You feel it loosening the edges of your thoughts, sanding them smooth. Steam lingers near the ceiling, thinner than before, like a ghost reluctant to leave. It carries the smell of smoke and salt, the combined scent of effort and ease. You realize that this is the scent of humanity itself, persistence made fragrant. Every civilization leaves behind its aroma. Rome's smells like warm stone and olive oil. You breathe it in slowly, trying to memorize something that can't be kept. Outside, the first hints of morning creep along the horizon. The sky over Rome glows pale, a smear of silver above the rooftops. Birds stir on the ledges, their wings flicking dew into the air. The baths aren't empty, they're waiting. The architecture itself seems to inhale. The night taught the building how to rest. Dawn will teach it how to wake. You can feel both lessons in your pulse. You dip your fingers into the nearest basin. The water has cooled, but it's not cold. Its warmth is a memory now, gentle and diffused. When you lift your hand, droplets cling to your skin before sliding down, glimmering in the dim light like falling stars. Even water knows how to let go gracefully. The Romans built their empire around that idea, nothing permanent, only perfected in transition. The last attendant snuffs the final lamp. The wick smokes briefly, sending up one thin thread of grey that curls toward the ceiling. For a moment, it looks like a prayer escaping, or perhaps gratitude embodied. Then it vanishes. Darkness arrives not as absence, but completion. The marble still glows faintly from within, holding a memory of every flame it reflected. You close your eyes, feeling that warmth without light, the purest kind. The furnace below clicks once, a sound like punctuation. It's the building saying enough. You imagine the coals cooling into black diamonds, their last shimmer sinking into silence. There's something holy in their restraint. The Romans worshipped fire as both servant and god. Tonight, it feels more like a companion. Its work done, it rests. You do the same. You lean back against the wall, the stone no longer hot, but deeply alive. It hums faintly with stored memory. Your breathing slows to match its rhythm. Every exhale feels older than you, borrowed from centuries of sleepers who sat here before. That continuity soothes you more than heat ever could. You're part of something circular, endless, forgiving. The first light of morning brushes the edge of the window. It turns the steam silver, then white, then gone. The baths wake in silence, holding no trace of yesterday's noise. The fires are out, yet the warmth remains, invisible and loyal. You whisper to yourself, not in Latin or prayer, but in gratitude. To be warm is to be alive, to cool is to be wise. Outside, a bell tolls, soft and low. It marks the hour between night and day, dream and duty. The sound travels through the marble, vibrating in your chest. You rise slowly, carrying the last glow of fire within you. Steady, human, enough. The city exhales its first sigh of dawn. Fog hangs low over the rooftops, blending with the faint steam that still drifts from the baths. You step outside, and the air feels cleaner, lighter. as if night rinsed the streets in silence. The sky glows pale gold above the domes. Somewhere, a rooster cries from an unseen courtyard. The rhythm of Rome begins again, same as always, patient and inevitable. The bathhouse behind you hums faintly, the marble walls still warm to touch. The scent of oil and ash lingers in your hair, the perfume of sleep and civilization. Around you, vendors set up stalls, rolling carts across cobblestones. A woman arranges figs in neat rows. A boy lights a brazier for bread. These sounds, mundane and unhurried, are the heartbeat of a world reborn daily. You feel a strange affection for the routine, the ordinary miracles that rebuild order after every dark. From the aqueduct arches, sunlight spills in ribbons, each beam turning dust into glitter. The air itself feels awake. The Romans designed their mornings to start in brightness. To step into light was to greet the gods. You lift your face toward it, feeling warmth gather across your skin, soft and steady. It's the same light that touched emperors, slaves, architects, indifferent but generous. The sun makes no distinction, it simply gives. The baths open again soon. Slaves sweep the floors, refill basins, and relight furnaces. You hear the faint crackle of kindling catching flame. The smell of wood smoke curls upward, reintroducing the promise of heat. It's strange. The cycle comforts you. Yesterday's rest becomes today's preparation. Rome doesn't start new days, it continues them. Continuity is its quiet genius. You walk along the colonnade, hearing your footsteps tap against stone, steady and hollow. Birds perch on statues, preening feathers, unafraid. The world is simple now. Sound, air, light, stone. You can feel your mind expanding into calm, like warm air filling a room. The baths taught you this. Clarity isn't something you chase, it's what's left when everything else settles. Across the street, a young woman draws water from a public fountain. The sound of it splashing into her jar rings bright as laughter. She pauses, closes her eyes, and smiles before carrying it home. Her gesture, ordinary, brief, is Rome distilled. Even the smallest act here carries ceremony. You realize the city itself behaves like a body. It cleanses, feeds, rests, and begins again. As you pass through the square, bakers lift their shutters, releasing waves of warm bread-scented air. The fragrance folds into the breeze, mixing with traces of smoke and dew. You breathe deeply. This is what peace smells like. Labor without panic, time without hurry. The baths weren't the only temples. The bakeries, too, worship morning. You nod to a man dusting flour from his hands, and he nods back as if sharing a secret. In the distance, the temple bells begin to ring, slow, solemn, sonorous. Their echo moves across the city like a tide, reaching even the sleeping. The sound feels less like command and more like invitation. Rome calls softly to its citizens, rise, breathe, live. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the vibration pass through you, unhurried and whole. When you open them again, sunlight dances on puddles left by last night's rain. Each reflects a fragment of the sky, small heavens scattered across the street. You step carefully, seeing the world doubled in water. The Romans might have called this omen or art. You just call it perspective. Beauty existing in things walked over. A boy runs past carrying towels toward the bathhouse door. Linen fluttering like white birds. The day will fill again with noise, warmth, conversation. But for now, the threshold between silence and motion is perfect. This is the hour Rome forgets ambition and remembers balance. You feel that balance settle into your bones. You turn once more to look at the bathhouse. Steam drifts from its vents, pale as breath. The fires have awakened, the cycle complete. Somewhere inside, water begins to hum again, calling the city back to itself. You smile, stepping into the sunlight, knowing that peace, like Rome, is never built. It's maintained. The streets are fully awake now, but in your mind, the warmth hasn't ended. It lingers beneath the skin like quiet light. The bathhouse, still visible behind you, exhales small clouds of steam that rise and vanish into the morning. Watching them, you realize something the Romans always seemed to know. What rises must soften before it disappears. Even heat learns humility on its way to heaven. You breathe out slowly, your own exhale joining the city's gentle vapor. You walk along the edge of the Tiber. The river glimmers under the early sun, wide and patient. It carries reflections of temples, bridges, and lives, all temporary, all sacred. Romans called water the mirror of the gods. To look into it was to confront your own impermanence. The baths trained them for this. Every soak rehearsed mortality in comfort. You lean over the railing, watching ripples rewrite your reflection, and think maybe that's what eternity really means. Endless revision. A fisherman untangles his net beside you. His hands move with a rhythm learned from repetition, not thought. The city, too, works this way. Every citizen a gesture in a larger pattern. Harmony through habit. The baths taught you that peace isn't absence of labor, but the grace within it. You watch the man lift his net, the droplets glittering like small suns. Water leaves quietly, but never without leaving something luminous behind. You sit on a stone step, letting the breeze cool the last of your warmth. The sensation is tender, almost shy, the body remembering balance. For the Romans, bathing was always preparation for living, not escape from it. They didn't chase comfort, they curated it, like art. You realize that every empire eventually learns this truth. Luxury isn't having more, it's needing less. You close your eyes, listening to the city move like a distant ocean. The bells begin again, calling worshippers to temples. You imagine priests lighting incense, soldiers tightening armor, bakers slicing the first loaves. All different acts, but all rituals of awakening. Rome's greatness was never its monuments. It was its routines. You smile, feeling your heartbeat settle into that rhythm. Inhale for effort, exhale for rest. The same pattern the baths engraved into marble. The same pattern your breath now follows. A small flock of pigeons takes flight from a nearby roof. Their wings shimmer, catching sunlight in brief flashes. For a moment, they look like sparks escaping a dying fire. The image warms you more than heat ever could. You think of the stokers in the tunnels, the attendants, the slaves, the poets, all those who fed the flame. Their breath still rides the wind. Nothing human truly vanishes. It just changes form. You run your hand along the cool stone beside you. It's smooth from centuries of touch, from the hands of strangers who once sought the same clarity you're feeling now. The Romans didn't build for the moment, they built for memory. They believed the body would forget, but the marble would remember. You feel that truth hum under your palm, Permanence exists only in kindness repeated. The breeze picks up again, carrying scents from the markets. Figs, grain, wine. Familiar, human, grounding. You smile, realizing that peace doesn't live inside temples or bathhouses, but in these ordinary intersections. Warmth, meeting hunger. Rest, meeting labor. You meeting mourning. The world, once complicated, now feels almost kind. You stand stretching. The body moves differently now. He's slower, deliberate, graceful by accident. Perhaps that's the real purpose of the baths, to teach movement without struggle, strength without noise. The Romans sculpted that lesson into water and fire so no one would forget. You feel it now, a quiet command beneath your ribs. Live gently, but live fully. You begin to walk again, the sun rising higher, light turning the city into molten gold. The warmth on your shoulders feels earned. The water may have left your skin, but its memory remains. Soft, steady, forgiving. That's the soul's bath, not heat, but the ability to cool without hardening. You carry it like invisible armor, made of calm. As you turn a corner, a child splashes in a puddle, laughing. His reflection fractures and reforms, a small universe of motion and joy. The sight stops you because that's it, isn't it? The Roman secret. The world itself is a bath, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, always alive, always asking you to wade back in. You smile, and for the first time, you understand why they built so many. You look up, eyes half closed against the light. The sun feels like a second baptism, and the breeze like its blessing. The baths are behind you, but their peace has followed. Heat becomes light, light becomes breath, breath becomes prayer. The city hums around you, endless, awake. You walk on, warm, weightless, washed clean of everything except the will to keep moving softly through it all. By evening, the sun leans low again, gilding Rome in amber. Shadows stretch long across the cobblestones, curling around columns and doorways like tired cats. You return once more to the baths, drawn by instinct. The air outside smells of rain that hasn't fallen yet. You pause at the threshold, your hand on the warm stone, and listen. The water inside murmurs, faint, familiar, eternal. It sounds different now, quieter, older, as if it has learned your name. The pools shimmer beneath the lamps, their light folding softly into steam. Every echo feels slower, deeper, as though time itself is reluctant to leave. You take a step inside, and the sound of your foot blends seamlessly with 1,000 others who came before. The baths remember every visitor, but never hold them. That's the mercy of water. It keeps nothing, yet forgets nothing. You kneel by the edge of the pool, the surface trembling faintly at your breath. The reflection stares back, not the version that arrived, burdened by noise and expectation, but someone quieter, someone softened. The difference is subtle but sacred. The Romans built these walls for that transformation. Clean skin was secondary, clean stillness was the goal. You smile faintly, understanding that you've joined a ritual older than empire and immune to ruin. The lamps above flicker, their flames bending in rhythm with your pulse. Light plays across the ceiling mosaics. Gods, rivers, wings. They seem to move, to glide through the air like memories refusing to fade. You trace the patterns with your gaze, following them until your thoughts unravel into calm. The line between architecture and emotion blurs. You can't tell where the marble ends and your mind begins. Somewhere deeper in the building, An attendant hums a tune. The melody drifts through the corridors, sweet and formless, made of repetition and rest. It sounds like something between a lullaby and a prayer. You don't know the words, but you understand the meaning. Thank you for another day of warmth. You close your eyes, the song slipping through you like sunlight through water. The steam rises again, thicker now as the evening chill presses against the walls. It wraps around your shoulders like a shawl. The air smells faintly of cypress and oil, ancient perfumes still clinging to stone. You breathe deeply, and it feels like inhaling history. Each breath connects you backward and forward to every person who ever stood here, seeking relief, renewal, or simply silence. You reach into the pool, tracing a circle with your fingertips. The water folds around them, patient and forgiving. Its temperature is perfect, neither hot nor cold, only constant. That balance feels divine. The circle widens, ripples touching the walls before returning. Balance returning to balance. Cause and calm. You watch it happen, mesmerized. The sound of dripping returns, the eternal metronome of the baths. Each drop a note in the song of endurance. It reminds you that life, too, is a series of soft impacts. Moments meeting stillness. Effort meeting pause. You let the rhythm slow your breathing until thought disappears. For the first time in a long while, you feel entirely weightless. Outside, thunder murmurs on the horizon, distant and kind. The storm will wash the city tonight, as the baths wash its people. You imagine rain joining aqueduct, aqueduct joining pool, pool joining river, everything connected, everything returning. The Romans understood this, that water never ends, only travels. You smile, feeling yourself part of that same endless migration. The lamps dim further, the building sighs. The day is over, but peace remains. You rise slowly, water dripping from your fingers, the sound almost holy. Behind you, the baths continue to hum, a low, timeless lullaby for the living. As you step into the night, rain begins to fall, soft and steady, mingling with the warmth still clinging to your skin. You don't hurry. You let it soak into you. Each drop a blessing. Each step a quiet prayer. The baths fade behind you, but their whisper follows, woven into the rain. You are clean, you are calm, you are part of everything. And under the Roman sky, that feels true. The rain falls softly now, whispering through the alleys of Rome. The city glows as if reborn. Marble slick with silver, windows trembling with candlelight, streets breathing warmth from their stones. You pause at the crest of a hill, where the baths lie in shadow below, their arches faintly steaming against the dark. It's strange how quiet they seem from here. By day, they're alive with voices, water, laughter. By night, they become memory itself. The empire's heartbeat slowed to prayer. You close your eyes and listen. The rain against your skin sounds like the same water that filled those marble pools centuries ago. The same rhythm, the same mercy. The Romans are gone, their voices dust, their statues chipped, their gods retired, yet their warmth endures, not in fire or conquest, but in this simple continuity, the human need to be clean, to be still, to be momentarily free from everything that burns. Steam fades, but its kindness lingers. You think of the engineers who tamed rivers, the slaves who stoked furnaces, the poets who recited verses beside fountains, the women who perfumed the water with roses, and the children who splashed without knowing they were part of history. Every breath they left behind became part of the air you breathe now. Civilization, you realize, isn't a monument. It's shared warmth passed forward. You feel it in your chest, small, steady, eternal. A flash of lightning reveals the Tiber below, wide and unbothered. Its surface ripples like a thought, half remembered. Water, the great archivist, has carried every empire, washed every ruin, comforted every fool. It forgives without keeping score. Maybe that's why the Romans built their temples around it. Maybe that's why you keep returning to its sound. The baths, the river, the rain, all parts of the same hymn. You turn your face upward. Raindrops fall against your closed eyelids, cool and electric. The sensation feels both ancient and new, the same purity sought by emperors and farmers alike. You smile faintly. You understand now what the Romans meant by balance. Life isn't about heat or cold, effort or rest, pride or humility. It's about moving gracefully between them, like water flowing between stone and sky. In the distance, thunder fades into a low hum, as if the heavens themselves are exhaling. The city quiets again. You take one last look at the baths, their outlines blurring behind mist and rain. For a moment, you imagine them centuries from now. Empty ruins, open to stars, yet still humming faintly with warmth that refuses to die. Stone may crumble, but the peace it held remains in the air. You breathe in deeply, letting that peace settle in your lungs. It feels clean, simple, complete. You realize that nothing truly leaves the water. Not sound, not light, not memory. It only transforms, waiting to be found again by someone who listens slowly enough. You've listened, and in doing so, you've heard the oldest truth whispered in every ripple. Nothing perfect lasts, but everything gentle returns. The rain softens, the clouds drift, the scent of wet earth mingles with faint traces of oil and smoke carried from the baths. The empire sleeps, but the warmth remains awake, in stone, in air, in you. You start walking again, your footsteps blending with the rain's rhythm. Rome exhales one more time, ancient and endless. And as you disappear into the quiet streets, the water behind you keeps whispering its eternal benediction, that to be clean is to remember, and to remember is to be alive. The city fades into mist, and somewhere beyond the horizon, the steam continues to rise.